evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Next Gen Racing PROTO GT3 Championship, as brought to you on the sim racing platform known only as iRacing, the premier sim racing platform if you are on PC. And tonight marks round 2 of the 12-round calendar, as the series continues its tour of the United States in the opening rounds of this championship. And we are, of course, at the very tricky, high-speed roller coaster-like circuit, which we'll come on to more about in a short while. But with us being back once again this Wednesday evening, it is the case that our schedule for tonight is as follows. Times in British summertime, that's BST or UTC+1. In approximately just under 15 minutes, we'll be getting underway with the qualifying session, the 20-minute qualifying session, to determine our grid order for the purposes of the sprint race, race number 1 tonight. Then we'll be going straight into the sprint race, a 15-minute race, where the sole goal is to be at the front of your respective class and bring home the maximum possible points with the win, ideally, at the end of the race. We'll then be taking a brief break before returning at approximately 5 to 9 tonight, or more likely more towards 9 o'clock this evening, for the feature race, race number 2, the 60-minute race, with the all-important strategic element of that mandatory pit stop. And our focus, as always, will tonight be on the Apex Racing Academy lobby. That is Lobby 1, as sponsored by Apex Racing Academy. And tonight's broadcast is being brought to you via a mixture of free media platforms. Firstly, if you are so inclined to use YouTube, you can tune in via the official Next Gen Racing YouTube channel. That's Next Gen Racing on youtube.com. Alternatively, if you are a Facebook user, you can go to facebook.com/groups/Next Gen Racing. Or last but not least, if you are a Twitch user, you can go to twitch.tv/TX141 to tune in via Twitch. And of course, I am your host, commentator and broadcaster, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain Spit, and I'll be bringing you all of your racing action over the entirety of this championship series in both lobbies, of course. And our focus tonight on the Apex Racing Academy lobby. And Apex Racing Academy, well, let's introduce them, as we always do, as they are our senior partner for this lobby. So who are Apex Racing Academy, I hear you ask? Well, they're not just a setup shop. They are dedicated to making you better at iRacing, with services, access to drivers and features not found on other driving schools and academies. Working with them will see you connecting with pros like never before. You can learn how to prepare for a race, build setups, improve lap times, and understand how to use telemetry tools such as VRS. Every week they host multiple sessions where members can join the coaches and take advantage of group coaching sessions. And in partnership with SDK Gaming, all the data provided will be automatically synchronized directly to your PC. There's no need to go hunting for setup, replay or ghost files. The data is right there when you turn the simulator on. Interested or want to know more? Then why not sign up today at apexracingac.com. That website again, apexracingac.com. And of course, we're very grateful to have our continued partnership with Apex Racing Academy, having supported and sponsored our leagues all the way back to the GT3 Championship Season 1 on iRacing. They were there with us in Season 2 for the Premier Lobby, and they're back once again for the PROTO GT3 Championship Lobby 1. And it is the case that Apex Racing Academy are contributing to the series in the background as part of the prize pool for the GT3 drivers, with what is it, Apex Racing Academy yearly subs that will be going to our GT3 class winners. And we do have to correct what we were saying last time on the broadcast with regards to the prizes, in that there is no cash pool up for grabs with regards to the prizes for the GT3 drivers. It's only the Apex Racing Academy yearly subs, whereas the LMP drivers do have access to that cash prize pool come the end of the championship, and that'll go specifically to their class. But of course, talking about drivers and prizes, let's bring you on to those class championship standings. And we start off, as always, with the LMP class, the LMP Pro class here in the Apex Racing Academy lobby. And it is the case that after the opening round, which saw Chris Daines take a dominant form with the perfect round, 56 points his name, that's the maximum number of points for 2 wins plus pole position plus the fastest lap in both the sprint and the feature race. He is the man to beat. However, the closest after him, Gaz Williams, who's 16 points behind with 2 very good performances, and we look forward to seeing how Williams can potentially close the gap to Daines come the end of tonight. Jamie Doria, further 7 points behind in P3, 2 points ahead of Alex Everett and Alistair Kurt, with Everett ahead of Alistair Kurt based on result count countback, and Ed Lack there as well on 31 points in P6 at the bottom of that trio based on result countback. Robert Asunik P7 with Dan Skinner just behind him in P8, 2 points separating the two drivers there. Adam Delman and Phil McDougall completing our LMP2 Pro class there. And well, the competition between all of our drivers very fierce, but Chris Daines really in a world of his own at Watkins Glen. And will he be in that world of his own come the end of tonight, or will he be reeled on in? Meanwhile, as we come over to the Pro Championship in the GT3 class, it is the case that Callum Reid Garton was very on his toes, and on his heels was Tom Edmunds throughout the night, and Billy Fletcher not too far behind. The three drivers exchanging a great set of battles, particularly between Callum Reid Garton and Tom Edmunds. If anybody did miss the sprint race, I encourage you strongly to go and watch back the final lap of the sprint race, where we saw absolute drama in the battle for the race lead between Callum Reid Garton and Tom Edmunds, with the battle for the lead of the LMP2 class coming up right behind them on the final lap. And it was the case that Billy Fletcher got involved right at the very end and was able to pick up the win through a little bit of sneaky manoeuvring. It was the case he capitalised on a very awkward situation for Reid Garton and Tom Edmunds. Both drivers absolutely frustrated at that outcome, but Billy Fletcher taking home the major spoils there. But it was then in the feature race where Fletcher had underfueled and as a result had to cruise to the finish line and lost out on some critical points, whereas Callum Reid Garton was able to pick up the maximum possible points for the win. Plus also he did pick up the fastest lap in the sprint race, whereas Tom Edmunds picked up the fastest lap in the feature race. But all three drivers there really in a very close battle, and then it is a further 8 points behind to Matthew Hodges, with only a point off him is Carmelo Martello there in P5. Lee Horn at P6, joint 29 points with William Foyle, but ahead on result countback, and then Maurizio Macconi in P8 with Matt Caruana and Stefan Albanese round off the top 10. Caruana having a very difficult day at Watkins Glen, a good performance in the sprint race being undermined by an early retirement in the feature race, and he'll be looking to come back strong tonight. Gavin Gardner in P11 there on 18 points, 2 points ahead of Eduardo Franchim in P12, and Jean-Louis Deschamps and Maurizio Massi completing your pro standings there in the GT3 class. Meanwhile, in the AM class, it is the case that the complexion is a bit more like in the LMP2 class, with Stefan Gamboge Rasmussen picking up the majority of the points last time out with 2 back-to-back wins and the fastest lap in the sprint race. In his own words, however, it was about his pace, but also fortune being on his side, and well, if fortune was on his side, it was not on the side of Matt Edmunds there in P2, who picked up the pole position in the AM class, but in the end had a major incident with his teammate Matthew Addy in the sprint race, which saw him lose out on what was guaranteed a second place, if not the win. He's on 39 points, and we're hearing he is looking very, very fast going into tonight, but so is Matthew Addy, to be fair. Both drivers are looking to try and get their first win on the board. You can see only a further point behind them, 38 points, with a 3-point advantage to Ben Payne in P4, and 2 points ahead of Joseph McManus is Ben Payne there, with McManus in P5. The top 5 there in a little bit of class their own in terms of the pace, but Scott McLean will be looking to try and interrupt that and get into the top 5 come the end of tonight, only a further 4 points behind and showing great pace in the sprint, less so in the feature. Morton Esusus in P7 on 23 points, with Nigel Stock joint 23 and also Stuart Taylor with him, but on results count back, Nigel Stock and Stuart Taylor places behind, and then Alexander Batak completes our top 10 there on 15 points. With that retirement in the feature race, things did not go well for Alexander Batak, and he'll be looking to come back strong here at Ways Road Atlanta. Darren Doherty, meanwhile, in P11 there on 12 points, much like Matthew Addy, but Matthew Addy on result count back in the end in P12, and Callum Jenkins rounding off the AM class then the GT3s on 4 points. In the team standings, of which this is the Mark Sykes Designs Team Standings Championship, we can see that after round 1 it's RP Motorsports Pro Am who is on 93 points, and these team points are being gathered over both lobbies, so it is the case that some teams may be split between lobbies, whereas others are focused on individual lobbies, but it is RP Motorsports Pro Am who are currently leading by an advantage of 9 points over Outshoot Esports, and a further 4 points back at McChange by DB2, with the McChange outfit putting in a fantastic performance in the season opener, and are only a point ahead of NXTGEN Racing, followed by Racing Team Astra Team Orange on 78 points there. Hillerod Esport in P6, a point ahead of Rano Motorsport. McChange by DB1, a little bit further behind on 71 points in P8. And it's NextGen Racing with Sam at Cases UK on 68 points apiece with Team Tetra Rouge. Both teams there on that joint pointage, but Team Tetra Rouge behind based on result count back in P10. Now outside the top 10, we do have CXR Project Black leading the way on 65 points, with Crest Autosport Ferrari and Crest Autosport with Apex Tracks behind in P12 and P13. Racing Team Astra Blue P14, TGC Racing P15, and outside the top 15, but not to be forgotten about, we have RP Motorsport Senior, followed by XI iRacing, DRS Esports LMS1 and DRS Esports LMS2. in close succession, and in Team Racing Netherlands in P20, and outside the top 20, it is RD Simsport, followed by Holoton Racing, MRC Team, BRM, and TGC Bottom Split Heroes, bringing up the rear there on 33 points on result count back to BRM. Well, we talked all about the standings. What about our track for tonight? Well, we are still in the United States of America, but we have moved to the state of Georgia. We're in the county of Brazelton, Hall County in particular, for the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. Named after its title sponsor, Michelin Raceway, this circuit needs no introduction. It is the ultimate roller coaster thrill of a circuit if you are a road racer. If you haven't raced here, you've got to race here one day, because it is a circuit that will keep you on your toes and demand you have nerves of steel. And whilst the circuit map here perhaps does not give a clear indication of that, the circuit map provided us by simracingwiki.com, I can definitely tell you now, this circuit is full of undulations and blind apexes galore, whether it be the run up through turn 1 into turn 2 and the subsequent flow through turns 3, 4 and into the S's that run between turns 4 and 5. They don't actually have corner numbers, they're just referred to as the S's. You then have the slow corners of turns 6 and 7 before the incredibly long back straight running all the way from turn 7 down to the chicane at turn 10, and then you've got the blind apex over the hill through turn 11, downhill into 12, and that is the completion of the lap, and we bring you some onboard laps when we go into qualifying. Our race rules, meanwhile, is the same rules as last time out, albeit with a slight adjustment to one rule, which we'll tell you about shortly. Our driver setups tonight shall be the iRacing sprint setups for their cars, whether in the LMP2 class or the GT3 class. In the sprint race, as always, if a driver picks up 17 or more instant points, they'll pick up a drive-through penalty. And in the feature race, we can see the grid shall be set as a reverse grid based on the results of the sprint race, with the grid being separated into car classes, starting approximately 2 seconds apart. We've changed the rule from 5 seconds to 2 seconds as of this round going forward. There will be one mandatory pit stop as well, where drivers will need to take on fuel. Changing tyres is optional. Each driver will have one fast repair available, and then last but not least, a driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 20 or more instant points. Well, that's all the rules and regulations, that's all the introductions, but I know what you're all here for, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, I am as well. It is for the racing, and as we head back to our live pictures now, it is the case that we can see we're currently in the pit lane, and well, he was the man who stole the show away, Chris Daines, last week with that absolutely perfect performance in the LMP2 class, and will he be able to do it again tonight for Verano Motorsport? The LMP2 driver really making a major statement from Denmark, and well, if he wanted to make any bigger statements, well, he doesn't need to, because he made a phenomenal one last time out, and all eyes are on him, and he is the fastest in this final practice session before we do go into qualifying in just under 30 seconds time. And well, meanwhile, in the GT3 Pro class, it does look as though Tom Edmunds there for what is our for RD Simsport, looking very good as well. Currently parked up and looking to go racing, and he is the fastest, albeit by only 0.07 of a second over Matt Caruana. And as Matt Caruana makes his way around right now, it is the case that Caruana will be looking to come back as strong as possible, given the fact that he did have that disappointment in the feature race with that very early retirement. But we make our way over into the qualifying session then, and whilst we're making our way over, we do say hello to all you guys and girls in the chat, and we're seeing a lot of you in the Facebook chat tonight, including Katie Eames and also Arjan Kregel. Less of you in the YouTube and the Twitch chat at the moment, but do not be shy. Feel free to say hi if you do have access to a keyboard. It is the case that we don't discriminate here at NXTGEN Racing, and we do welcome everybody with open arms, whether you're a spectator or a sim racer or somewhere in between. But we are now into qualifying approximately 2 minutes early, so we are slightly ahead of our expected schedule, but still, as all our drivers make the way on around, it is the case that they'll be looking to do their utmost in this 20-minute session. So we already see Adam Delmont there. They're starting to take a bit of a rallycross line coming through turns 2 through to 4, and it should be pointed out that there was a discussion after round number 1 with regards to qualifying, whether we would see the qualifying session split into 2 halves, one for the LMP2 drivers and one for the GT3 drivers, but the organisers decided, no, we're going to stay with the current format. It is still up for discussion and will be re-evaluated again come the end of round number 3. We've still got plenty to discuss around that, and we'll wait and see what exactly happens as our drivers make their way down. Right now, we are just trying to find the lead driver making his way on around in this qualifying session, so that way we can bring you the on board. But in fact, we can see here is the case that Chris Daines goes around lap. He's got a little bit of traffic ahead of him, but let's ride on board with Chris Daines then as he takes us around for his opening flying lap of this qualifying session. Coming across the timeline then to go on to his opening lap, coming into turn 1, flicking the car into the uphill right-hander here, charging uphill. It's a blind summit as you go into the left-hander too, dabbing on the brakes here before rolling through turn number 3, and now the cut through turn number 4, the left-hander 4, coming through the S's here, no corner numbers, just known as the S's, and you can hear that completely flat out committed on the throttle before breaking into turn 5 and flying on through. As we see there, an LMP2 tripping over a GT3, and Daines there having to make a split-second decision as to whether to abort the lap or keep on going. He keeps on going as he rolls them through the right-hander at turn 6. The two slice corners on the circuit here, turn 6 and 7, and it's all about getting on the throttle as early as possible as you exit out 7, because now you've got the run through the left-hand kink of 8 down this long back straight where we're going to be seeing a lot of overtaking in the long charge down towards the turn 10 chicane. Now as he makes his way down here, accelerating up through the gearbox with the highest possible speed, and as he makes his way through the kink of 9, we're going into the downhill run and braking into turn number 10, braking as late as you dare, cutting as much of that opening apex as possible to straight line the second part of turn 10, over the crest of turn number 11, then blind apex over the ridge, and now making his way downhill for turn number 12. It's a very fast lap around here, regardless of your class, and Chris Daines crosses that time line. And what's that opening lap going to be on the board? It is an aborted lap. In fact, Daines not getting a lap in, and I do believe that may be due to a track limits incursion, but Gareth Williams setting the pace in the end with a 1:11.284, and well, we will wait and see whether anybody can go faster, as we do see Dan Skinner goes a little bit slower there by a whole second, in fact, compared to Gareth Williams as they make their way through, or Gaz Williams in short, as he likes to be known. We do see some times also coming in for our GT3 drivers, as we do see that William Folt in the Sol McLaren MP412C, tucked in very tight behind one of the TGT racing machines as they make the way around, and I believe that is Stuart P. Taylor just ahead of him, who he's riding at the rear end of as they make the way down. But we are seeing faster lap times coming as Edward Lack goes provisional fastest of everybody and in the LMP2 class on a 1:10.720, and well, that is 3 tenths faster than Phil McDougall. The 2CXR Project Black drives currently P1, P2. I suspect that a lot of lap time is still out there in the early stages of this qualifying session. It is the case that drivers are currently getting fuel out of the car, laying the rubber down on the tarmac, and we will wait and see what sort of laps come in. And speaking of laps coming in, well, Matt Evans had to abort his opening flying lap. He's gone out for another one here. And we were hearing in the pre-race catch-up when I had the chance to speak to Matt Evans. When I asked him what was he expecting for tonight, it was a pretty short answer, and that was, in short, my pace is where I want to be. However, like usual, need to stop making silly mistakes. And it was silly mistakes in the end that cost him a huge result in the sprint race in particular at Watkins Glens. And if he can keep those mistakes away, he is looking very good to definitely be on the podium. And the question will be, will we see Addy or Emmons, the two Matthews, of course, pick up their first wins of the season here tonight? Now, one of the things that you see make his way down there into turn number 10, for those wondering, does the car compress heavily under braking for that downhill drop, and we see the rear floor panel actually scrape against the ground? Yes, that is correct. The drivers are coming down there as rapidly as possible, and they are feeling the rear of the car bottoming out on the road surface, and that's what makes that braking zone down to turn 10 such a tricky zone. And what if I was to tell you, in the original formation of this circuit, all those years ago, the best part of 40, 50 years ago, that chicane wasn't there. It was the case that it was a long run all the way from turn 7 all the way up to where turn 11 is, and it was a sweeping, flat-out run all the way up the hills. Matt Evans has yet to get a lap on the board, another invalidated lap, and I do believe that invalidation is for track limits here at turn number 5, where he's gone a bit wide, but this time he brings it together, but the rear sticks out quite nastily there. He just doesn't get the rear weight transfer settled down, and we'll have to wait and see if Evans can find a way to get that valid lap in and not have those little mistakes. He might be putting some pressure on himself right now, because each time your lap's invalidated, although he has still got 15 minutes this session, he will be thinking to himself, okay, I've got to go again to even get a lap on the board. Perhaps he's just trying to bleed some fuel out of the car, perhaps get some rubber down, get some temperature in those tyres, trying to see where he can push the limits currently and where not. We'll have to wait and see. But we look from him to one of our other drivers who's yet to set a lap, and that is Maurizio Massi here as he makes his way on down. And the DRS eSport driver here, after what was a mixed fortunes round at Watkins Glens, his debut in Next Gen Racing Series, is the case the Italian bringing the Audi ARA as he makes his way out of 5 and down towards 6. He does have William Folt coming up behind him, although I suspect William Folt's enough of a distance behind not to really trip over Massi, and likewise Massi not feel as though he's blocking the driver behind, although he won't be too worried about the fact that he's got a driver coming up behind. He'll be just thinking about what he can do at this point. As he comes charging down the back straight here, he'll be looking to get some more solid points on the board as we see him heading down towards the chicane. And in the meantime, we say hello in the Twitch chat there to Darren Doherty, 81, and also to Sir Bottlejob, who's currently not unable to type because he's got hands full of pizza. Indeed, if you want something nice to eat while tuning into the racing, having a pizza is up there with one of the best race watching foods. I personally would also go perhaps for fish and chips if it's a nice sunny day, as we see our drivers make the way down here, or if you're going American, go with a classic burger and french fries as they make the way on around. Now, as we do see Massey coming down towards what is turn 1 once again, he does settle 118.881, which is his first lap on the board there. Currently P15, P7 in the GT3 Pro class as he makes his way on around. Callum Reid Garton has yet to get a lap in, and in fact we see the Altitude Esport driver here making his way down through turn number 10 through the chicane. And I think for Callum Reid Garton, he is one of those drivers who really does push it to the limit here as he makes his way flowing on down. And we can actually see that Matt Edmunds has yet to get a lap in, neither has Jochen Siegert, so we still do have a few laps that are not on the board. Callum Reid Garton takes provisional pole, I say that, and he takes provisional pole in what is the GT3 Pro class. They're 2/10 faster than Matt Caruana, and that is quite an advantage here at what is Road Atlanta. But of course, one of the big items which our drivers will be thinking about is the fact that around this circuit, if you can pick up the toe down that back straight, that is worth up to half a second if you nail it in terms of gaining the toe down the back straight, and that could be something our GT3 drivers are trying to work on, particularly if they've got teammates in the lobby, as we see that Callum Reid Garton giving way to one of our LMP2 drivers, and well, Chris Daines currently the fastest of all of our LMP2 drivers now that he's been able to put in a lap that's uninterrupted, and he's continuing to absolutely attack the circuit. Is the 111 driver as he makes his way down the back straight again. We can see there in the Facebook chat, we say hello to Lee Horn, one of our competitors in this series, and also one of the veterans of NXTGEN Racing. And we can see that he's gutted, he's away this week on his holidays, but he does love this track, and that's unfortunately, but we do look forward to having you back when you return from holiday. But we hope you're having a nice vacation at the same time, of course. And we'll Lee there wishing all our drivers good luck, and indeed we wish our drivers all the best of luck as they make their way around in what is a very challenging qualifying session here. And our drivers, to be fair, the overall move down in the paddock in the build-up to tonight's session, a lot of drivers were worried about qualifying because of the fact that the LMP2 cars, of course, the Dallara P217 machinery, coming around very quickly on the lap. And to give you an idea of the delta between their laps, they're doing laps somewhere in the region of 109s to 110s, whereas the GT3s are doing laps in the region of 1 minute 17s through to 1 minute 18s. So that difference of 7 to 8 seconds is a very sizable one, and as a result, an LMP2 car can very quickly end up catching a GT3 around the course of the lap. And you can see here, there is the case that Chris Daines has already tripped up behind Tom Edmunds here, and to be fair, Edmunds has done nothing wrong, but it's of course a nasty fault in the mind here as we see the RD Sim Sport driver. He's just going to take his normal line. We see Chris Daines actually backing off the lap there, and behind Tom Edmunds we do have, well, we have two of our LMPs now making their way on through, and Daines getting tripped over the fact that one of the other LMP2 class cars wanting to cut on through there, and that is the sequence or the shuffle that you have to deal with. You have to find the right time to go onto a lap, and Edmunds meanwhile will be just happy the fact that he hasn't really been held up on this lap. He has had the LMPs behind him, but they've both been patient, and as the RD Sim Sport driver comes around, he's currently P4 in the GT3 Pro class, currently P13 overall. What will he be able to do as he comes to the final corner here in the Porsche 911, and as he makes his way across that timeline, it's not an improvement for Edmunds, or there it is, and it's updated on our board. It's a 117.8, only 7/100ths off of Callum Reid Garton. I think that rivalry between the two drivers is going to continue here, because that separation is a very small one as they make their way around. And well, Edmunds, to be fair, from what I heard down in the paddock, he was not happy with the fact that he lost out in the sprint race last time out at Watkins Glens. To be fair, a great sportsman, Tom Edmunds, a lovely guy, but you can tell when he wants to sink his teeth into a race, and he wasn't happy of missing out on that win, and he will be looking to go for it tonight. But of course, Callum Reid Garton doing the same, and then Billy Fletcher, well, not quite there on the pace right now, although I say that he is only a tenth for Matt Caruana, who in turn is 1.5 tenths almost off of Tom Edmunds. But I think Fletcher will be happy with a second row start for the GT3 Pro drivers, in the fact that he will be right up there. We'll have to wait and see. But meanwhile, in the GT3 AM class, well, Matthew Addy, currently the fastest of all of them, by a significant margin here, a margin of almost 3 tenths ahead of Alexander Batak. And we can see that Addy right now cruising down and around and through into the S's here, coming out turn 4, rolling on down the hill, and looking very good in the Lamborghini Huracan. And we do know that Lamborghini Huracan around here in the GT3 class very, very good, but at the same time quite unstable, as we see there Matthew Addy deciding to drift his way through turn number 5. He gets style points for that, but he won't be getting a good lap time out of that, and well, he's going to have to go again with some flat spotted tyres as well. Particularly that rear right will have felt the pinch of trying to get some traction as he made his way through the corner, and well, now he's got to think about, does he pull into the pits? In fact, he slows down there. I think that's the BMW M4 of Oosterhuis come on through. No, that's not Morten Oosterhuis, my apologies. That is Jochen Siegert making his way down the back straight here, as the German still needs to get a lap on the board, and well, he's given himself plenty of space to do it, but will he be able to get a time on the board soon? He has got 9 minutes to do so, so it's not as though he's in a difficult situation right now, but the longer he leaves it, as he backs off there to let Matthew Addy through, I think he feels he's also got some LMP2s coming through, plus also one of the GT3 Pros coming up behind him, and that GT3 Pro is Gavin Gardner as they make their way around here. Well, you can see it's going to go onto a lap, and we're going to ride on board with the BMW M4 driver from the GT3 M class as he lifts off there. He decides he doesn't want to go for it, and we see Gardner moving out of the way for Verano Motorsport as well, as Gardner sets a lap at 118.875. That puts Gardner into P10 in class, P19 overall as he jumps to the pit lane. And well, let's try and find one of our GT3 drivers who's on a lap. Well, Edmunds we were hoping was going to be on lap, but he goes into the pits. What about Billy Fletcher? Well, Fletcher comes on through here, and well, hopefully he will come around and go on to another lap as he crosses that timeline and makes his way down towards turn number 1. So the difference you'll see in speed here is how much speed the GT3 can carry through the corners as he makes his way uphill through turn number 1. Very smooth there, to be fair. Now over the crest into 2, the blind apex through 3, and as he rolls through turn number 3 and down through 4 here, you can see how Fletcher having to balance the car very finely as he comes down into the S's, flying on through here and into the braking zone for turn number 5. Flicking the car on in here, making sure not to unsettle the rear, but he does use a lot of exit curve there. He's got to be careful with that exit curve because it's very pronounced in terms of the elevation of the road surface. As he now comes down to turn number 6 here, full attack as you see the rear coming around on the braking, and now making his way into turn number 7. And again, running a lot of brake bias towards the rear, no doubt, in order to get that rotation as much as he dare, as he now makes his way down the back straight here in the long run, all the way down towards the turn 10 chicane. It's been a very good lap for Fletcher so far. Not the fastest out there, but his sector 2 has been an improvement on his previous best by a tenth, as he makes his way down the back straight here through the kink of 9, now heading into that downhill break into that horrible grinding braking zone as he comes through the left into right chicane, and the rear just coming around a little bit aggressively, makes his way back to Gary. Sector 3's been strong, and as he makes his way down through 11 into 12, we'll have to see what this is going to be for Fletcher. He's currently P4 in class, and as he makes his way across that timeline, he crosses it. It is provisional pole for Fletcher by 17 thousandths of a second, and how will his teammate Callum Reid Garton respond? That'll be the question. Now they will want to lock out the front row of their class. Well, particularly Fletcher will be in a row of his own right now, and the GT3's P10 will mean that he'll be starting on row number 5 alongside an LMP2 machine of Phil McDougall. And well, Callum Reid Garton, I should say, now needs to find a way to come on back as they make the way around with only 6 minutes to go. And Garton is going to go on a lap here as he comes on through. Well, in terms of his previous lap, that was a warm-up lap, so it's a 1:23.0. That was not indicative, in fact, 22.0, I should say. And as he comes through, we will see what Callum Reid Garton can do very shortly. But meanwhile, as we are watching Callum Reid Garton make his way on around, it's only fair that we do give you a sign of how the classes are holding up in this qualifying session right now. And you can see in the LMP Pro class, it is the case that Chris Daines currently on that 109.735 overall pole, and also pole position in the LMP Pro class by the best part of 3.5 attempts, if not slightly over, to Gaz Williams there in P2, with Gaz Williams only separated from Alex Everett by 0.04 of a second. The two of them very close, and then Alistair Kirk a little bit further behind, 1.5 tenths behind in P4. Robert Asunik completing the top 5 there, only 2.5 hundredths off of Alistair Kirk, as William Folgo's the fastest of everybody in the GT3 class in sector 4. And well, I think William Folg moves up to P5 in the GT3 Pros. He's got lap time coming in, although he is 4.5 tenths off of Tom Edmunds. But speaking of the GT3 Pro class, it is Billy Fletcher currently on provisional pole by 200ths versus Callum Reid Garton, his teammate who we're watching. And it's Matt Carr on it in P3, Tom Edmunds P4, and William Folg completing the top 5 there, with Martello, to be fair, not too far for William Folg in P6, only 2.5 hundredths, as we see Callum Reid Garton peeling into the pit lane. And we do look to Matthew Hodges instead as he makes his way down the back straight here. Currently P8, the Ferrari driver for the 6R Project Black team, not having the best of qualifying sessions right now, but I think building up to his ultimate laps in the remainder of this session as he makes his way around. Tom Edmunds going purple of the GT3 class drivers in sector 1, and he goes P3, does Tom Edmunds. He completes the lap at 1:17.802 as Robert Asunik moves up to P4 in the LMP Pro class. Meanwhile, as for the GT3 AMS, on the other hand, it is Matthew Addy who still holds on to provisional pole by almost 3 tenths ahead of Alexander Patak. Morton Esusus in P3 and Nigel Stock P4, with Matt Evans currently P5 and on an out lap. And well, speaking of a driver who, well, we heard a lot about the pace, but where the pace was going to be, Evans right now P5, but he is on that outlap, so I do suspect he's got a bit of a mangled rear wing by the looks of things. I think he might have had a bit of a moment with the wall on the opening portion of the lap. As we check his sector times, well, he has recently come out the pit lane, so it may be the case that he's had contact with something, so that rear wing is not looking the way it should on what is the right-hand side. If we look from the rear of the car, the left-hand side if you're looking at the car head-on, but we will wait and see whether he pulls back into the pits or whether he goes for it here, Edmunds, as it does look as though he's going for it, but he's currently P5, Ben Payne P6, Stuart P. Taylor P7, and then you can see it yet to get a lap in and currently parked in the pit lane. And we're just checking in with regards to the stewarding and whatnot, and we're not hearing anything with regards to Yokonsiga. So it is the case, if he's in the pits, he's decided just to stay in the pits for a given reason or such. But as we see our drivers making their way on around right now, 3 minutes this qualifying session to go, plus their final qualifying laps, and it is going some for all our drivers here at the Road Atlanta circuit. In the fact the lap times are only getting faster, and Edmunds right now needs to find something if he wants to be up there versus Addy and also Ustus, as right now it is looking as though, well, for Edmunds it is not going his way, but we will wait and see. And of course, with the absence of Gamborg Rasmussen as of tonight, he's not racing in this round as I'm to understand it. There is an opportunity for some major points to be scored here by our other GT3 AM drivers, but at the same time, of course, the Hilliard Motorsport team, the Hilliard Esport team with Alexander Batat and Morten S. Usus in representation, they are doing everything they can in order to be able to pick up key points for their team and also carry the flag and make sure it's not just the Gamborg Rasmussen show for them. As we hear that Gaz Williams has improved, as we continue to watch Matt Edmunds here as he makes his way through the final couple of corners, comes out the chicane now into turn number 11, and as the Audi R8 driver makes his way down the drop of 11 into 12, 2 minutes to go here. What's it going to be? He was faster than his previous best in sector 1. He does not improve on that lap. He has still got to find a way to improve from his previous best, which is of course a 1:19.24, and we'll wait to see if Edmunds can find some time at the very end of this race. But we look from him to Carmelo Martello here, who making his way down the back straight, that long run down towards turn number 10. Martello currently in at P6 in class, and as he makes his way on around here, it does look as though Martello has got a lot of time to find if he wants to be right up there come at the end of the proceedings tonight, as he makes his way down into what is the start-finish straight. And with that, is he able to improve? And no, he goes on to another lap here. What about Chris Daines? Well, Daines has just crossed the line, and he's gone even faster for that pole position, a 1:09.575, and Chris Daines absolutely flying right now. It is the case that he is 3/10 faster than his main competitor Gaz Williams in this qualifying session. Alex Everett a further 3/10 behind, and well, Daines just absolutely on a mission to make a statement. Round number 1, it was about making a huge opening statement, and now round number 2, he's continuing this form. It's not a one-off special, it is the Chris Daines show at the front of the qualifying field, and as he makes his way down the back straight here, I think if he can keep this up in the sprint race, he is going to be gone by the midpoint of the race in terms of he can find a break. But at the same time, we do have the very long back straight here, and that could reel him in quite nicely for Gaz Williams, who you can bet will be doing everything. As we see there, Daines the fastest of everybody in sector 3, but he finds Matthew Hodges there as they make the way out of the chicane up for 11, and Hodges has gone onto a faster lap. Daines crosses the line, he does not improve, and meanwhile Matthew Hodges, does he improve? No, he does not, as the 20 minutes is up, the checkered flag is out, and well, Daines goes on to one more lap. What about Gaz Williams? He's making his way downhill right now, and as he comes through the drop, will Williams be able to find a way to improve? He crosses the line, he was better in 3 of his sectors, and that's provisional pole for Gareth Williams. So it is the case that Gaz Williams has found a way to come back by 400ths versus Chris Daines, and now the pressure is back on Daines here to find a lap right at the very end, and we will wait and see, because Daines is making his way out on circuit right now, but going down the back straight, and he has got some traffic, as meanwhile William Foyle comes into the pits. He's decided enough is enough. What about Alex Everett? Meanwhile, as Everett makes his way downhill through 10, into 10 I should say, and as he comes on through the left into right here, well, Daines has gone fastest of everybody in sector 2, fastest of everybody in sector 3. Daines is flying out on circuit as we see how Alex Everett coming through. I don't think he's going to improve as he crosses that timeline. He does not. But he does improve, in fact, to a 110.145. I'll wash my mouth out with soap. But meanwhile, Daines comes through the final corner here, and could this be a response? And it is a response, and he takes provisional pole and overall pole in the end. It is a 109.245, and Daines left it all to the final lap. My goodness, as Matthew Hodges, meanwhile, stays P8 in class, and well, Chris Daines in the end, leaving it all to the last moment in what has been a frantic but brilliant qualifying session. But with that, we now get ready to go racing here at Road Atlanta in the Apex Racing Academy. That's Lobby 1 of the Next Gen Racing PROTO GT3 Championship, and my goodness, what a close qualifying session. And in the end, Daines taking pole in the LMP2 class, Tom Edmunds taking pole by only 900ths over Billy Fletcher in the GT3 Pro class, and it is Matthew Addy by a considerable margin taking pole in the GT3 AM class, taking pole by 3/10 over Alexander Batak. As we now transition to the grid, be informed, and let's bring you that starting grid for the opening race of tonight. So starting on pole then, with a 109.245 in the LMP2 class, and overall is Chris Daines from Denmark for Rano Motorsport. Alongside him, Gareth Williams there, or Gaz Williams, he likes to be known in short, 3/10 behind in P2. The second row, Alex Everett, joined alongside by Alistair Kirk there, P4. The Crest Autosport with Apex Tracks driver qualifying ahead of TGC Racing's Kirk, and the two of them will have a rivalry making their way down into the opening corners, I'm sure of that. Robert Asuni and Edward Lack on row number 3. It is the case, the Team Racing Netherlands driver just inching out Edward Lack in the end by a couple of attempts, and then Adam Delmont on P7, that's row number 4. The Excite Racing driver joined by his teammate of Dan Skinner in P8 there, the two of them making up row number 4, and then row number 5 seeing Phil McDougall, the last but not least of our LMP2 Pro Class drivers for CXR Project Black, and he is joined on that row by the first of our GT3 Pro drivers, our GT3 Pro pole position driver of Tom Edmunds for RD Simsport. On row number 6 meanwhile is Billy Fletcher alongside Callum Reid Garton, the two Altitude Esports driver locking out the 6th row of the grid. And now on row number 7 is Matt Caruana and William Foyle for Cresta Autosport with Apex Tracks, and they line up together there. We then have Carmelo Martello and Jean-Louis Deschamps on row number 8 with the DRS Esport LMS1 driver just inching out Jean-Louis Deschamps by the best part of 6,000ths in the end, and it is Matthew Hodges for CXR Project Black joined by Gavin Gardner on row number 9 there. The Rano Motorsport driver not able to replicate what his teammate was able to do in the LMP2 class. As the manual double fold rolling start procedure gets underway, we have a full lap. We then have Maurizio Massi in P19, the DRS Esport LMS1 driver, and he is joined by pole position man in the GT3 AM class on row number 10, and that is Matthew Addy for Next Gen Racing with Sam Cases UK, who lines up P20. And then behind them, Stefan Albanese and Alexander Patak make up your row 11 with the GT3 Pro driver, DRS Esport LMS2, joined by Hilliard Alexander Patak in P22. And then we do have Morten S. Usus, the privateer, joined by Nigel Stock on row at number 12 there. Nigel Stock for Crest Autosport with Apex Tracks. And then behind them, we do have Matt Edmunds and Ben Payne making up row number 13 with Matt Edmunds, who had a difficult qualifying session in the end. The Next Gen Racing with Sam at Cases UK driver and Crest Autosport Ferraris, Ben Payne alongside him on that 13th row. And then on the final row, it is Stuart P. Taylor, and alongside him, the TGC Racing driver is the privateer of Jochen Seeger in P28, not setting the time and decided in the end to start from the back. But as we do wait to go racing here, 28 drivers are taken to the Road Atlanta circuit in what is round number 2 of the GT3 PROTO GT3 Championship, I should say, the Apex Racing Academy lobby here, and we are at the Michelin Raceway, Road Atlanta in the United States of America, and this is Lobby 1's action being brought to you live tonight, and we will be with Lobby 2 later on this week, more on that later. But right now we are heading into the sprint race, the 15-minute sprint race, and only moments away as our LMP2 drives behind the safety car make the way down the back straight here. We're not far away from going racing, and when we do, it will be 15 minutes of frantic action. You can be sure of it as our drivers get ready to go racing, and all eyes will be on Chris Daines in the LMP2 class. He has shown absolutely scintillating pace. Will he be able to get the drop on Gaz Williams, come the run out of the first opening corners and make the break down the back straight, or will Gaz Williams stay with him and take the fight? We will wait and see. Meanwhile, in the GT3 classes, we see on the blimp here, all our GT3 class drivers starting 2 seconds behind the LMPs, according to the rule change going into tonight's round, and they will all be looking to get the best possible start as they make the way on down. And we can see a bit further there, the AMs just closing up, but we do look to the head of the pack, and it is to Chris Daines, who takes us away for the sprint race here at Road Atlanta. and it's lights out, and away we go here for the opening race at Road Atlanta as Chris Daines gets a good start, but immediately Robert Asuni tries to go up the inside of Alexander Everett, but he doesn't find a way. Meanwhile, trying to go round the outside into the opening corner is Gaz Williams. Williams not able to find a place, and instead he has Alex Everett now to deal with, as Everett has to go defensive versus Alistair Kirk as they all make their way through safely into the opening couple of corners they go, and we can see there the two CXR Project Black drivers making their way down the hill. Dan Skinner losing out massively on this opening lap so far as he falls back to P9 in the Excite Racing drive, taking it safe in the opening lap. Meanwhile, Billy Fletcher has taken his way up into the lead of what is the GT3 Pro class over the opening corners here, getting ahead of Tom Edmunds as he makes his way down through turn number 5 and heading in towards 6. They come charging on down towards the right-hander pair here as they make their way into 6-7, and as they come through, we can see a bit of a gap has opened up to the chasing pack. There's a Matthew Hodges going on the offensive there versus Matty, but he's not able to find his way on through as they make their way through turn number 6 and into 7 in very rapid order, and as they come charging on through at this point, it is the case that Hodges has to stay in behind as now we do enter that territory of the slipstream base passes, as we can see Alak here looking up the inside of Delmont into turn number 10, and as he makes his way through, Delmont puts his nose back in there immediately and says no you don't, as they make the way over the crest of 11 and down in towards turn number 12 here. Side by side they roll, and it's Lack on the outside versus Delmont as they come across that timeline, and meanwhile a little bit further up the road here we can see it's the case Daines breaking away, but meanwhile Alex Everett holding on round the outside there of Alistair Kirk as they make the way up the hill, and meanwhile it is Lack who's lost out in the end to Delmont as they make the way onto the second lap. But Delmont goes very wide there, he rally crosses off the road after a little bit of snap understeer, and as he tries to get himself back up to speed he drops to the back of what is the LMP2 pack. Meanwhile Billy Fletcher continues to lead the GT3 Pro class in the GT3s overall with an absolutely brilliant start as he makes his way down the hill here, and Tom Edmunds in the end tucking in behind and just waiting for that opportunity as Matt Caruana has made some good ground at the start of this race and is tucked in behind what is their Callum Reid Garton as they make the way in towards turn number 6, and Caruana looks at a move here. This is the battle for the P3 in the GT3 Pros, that's P11 overall, and he goes up the inside and gets the move done as they make the way down onto the back straight here. But could Callum Reid Garton have planned this? He wants to slipstream his way back. We're talking about side-by-sides right now. It's the plucky little Porsche versus the BC Lamborghini, and it is Tom Edmunds in the Porsche who takes the lead of the GT3 Pro class as they make the way down the back straight. But of course Billy Fletcher will have that V10 power at his disposal as they make the way in towards the braking zone. Edmunds puts himself in the middle of the road, he forces Fletcher to go up the inside, and as they make the way into braking here, the battle for the lead continues and Edmunds gives him the space. Fletcher's back in for now. I think he's making a statement which is I can stay with you, the Porsche is not slow anymore, as they make the way down for 11 and into 12. It's a complete lap number 2, and we bring the battle box up in the bottom right hand corner of your screen, ladies and gentlemen, for your viewing pleasure and informational pleasure as they go on to another lap here. But after the opening couple of laps in the LMP class, it is Chris Daines who's already broken up a gap of 3.1 seconds to Alistair Kirk, and to be fair, Alistair Kirk has taken the fight to Gaz Williams and made it work. Alex Everett P3 and then Gaz Williams P4, Robert Asunic P5 being chased by Edward Lack in P6. That's your top 6 in the LMP class with Dan Skinner and then Adam Delmont behind. I believe we've had Phil McDougall ahead to the pits. Phil McDougall has had a moment on circuit, and it is the case it has not worked out with the 6R Project Black driver, as we do see the 2 Excite Racing drivers here, Adam Delmont and also Skinner going side by side down the long straight, and as they make the way it's going to be Delmont here who tries to hold on by going around the outside, but in the end Skinner tucks in. Meanwhile in the GT3 Pro class, it is Billy Fletcher currently leading ahead of Matt Caruana, with Tom Edmunds having recently been passed, and we can see Tom Edmunds there now losing ground to Callum Reid Garton as they're side by side in the battle for P3 in the GT3 Pros. That's P11 overall as they make the way into the braking zone. You can see Matt Caruana going all the way in, decided to go early there, and there's a bit of contact between the two of them, and it brings Callum Reid Garton into the fight. My goodness, Caruana deciding to get the elbows out nice and early, and Callum Reid Garton almost thinking about coming in as William Foyle with all the chaos in front in terms of the drivers bunching up. Says, don't mind if I do, Edmunds, and goes up the inside through turn 11 into 12, and Edmunds looks back at him, he's nowhere near as Foyle goes a bit deep. He understands a bit wide, but he carries the speed up the hill, and Carmelo Metello, meanwhile, versus Jean-Louis Deschamps behind them in the battle for P14. That's P6 in class as they make the way down the hill here, and they all have to settle into a line. There's no way you go side by side through the S's here unless you're very brave or absolutely crazy, and well, some of our drivers are crazy, but these guys are a little bit of common sense, I reckon, as we see Gavin Gardner at the back of this pack and looking for an opportunity. But meanwhile Matt Caruana has got ahead of Billy Fletcher. I think Fletcher's actually had a slowdown somewhere on circuit or run wide, because Callum Reid Garton's also come through. I think he ran wide through turn number 5, I'm hearing in my right hand here. As they make the way through turn number 7, we must look at our GT3 AM class. They can't be forgotten about. And right now it's Matthew Addy who leads in P17 overall. That's GT3 AM P1 as he makes his way down the back straight here, and he's got Alexander Batak and also Matt Edmunds on the charge, and Edmunds in particular, who started P5 in class, is on a mission to go on the offensive here as they come charging down the back straight, and Edmunds looking for that potential move versus Alexander Batak, but he's too far away this time as they make their way down into turn number 10, but he's making ground and he's making it very rapidly. With 5 minutes, this 15-minute race complete, that time goes quickly, and they will all be cognizant of that as they make their way down and around and down through turn number 12. Now as they come through here, Edmunds getting closer and closer as we ride on board with the Audi R8 driver as he heads into turn number 1 here. And well, where can he go for the move? We could think about it into 2, but he's got to have such an overspeed and the outside to inside line up into 2 and 3 to dare to go for the move. And I think it would be wiser here just to simply keep behind Batak and put that pressure on, get Batak to make a mistake. But to be fair, Alexander Batak, one of the most consistent drivers in this field, in the GT3 field, and also running in that Mercedes. As you can see, that Edmunds not able to take as much speed through the corner. That Mercedes incredibly stable over curves, very planted, but it suffers from innate understeer. And as they make their way down to turn 6, you can see how Edmunds has lost out there. He's just not carried the speed as they make their way through turn number 6. But meanwhile, I can tell you that further up the road, William Foyle has found a way past Billy Fletcher, and as they make their way down the back straight here, it is the case that Callum Reid Garton and Matt Caruana are breaking away, and Foyle said, well, I'd like a bit of the podium action, please, if you don't mind. And Fletcher now side by side with Tom Edmunds. They make their way to the braking zone, and Fletcher goes all in on the brakes here to make it a 2 for 1. And as they make the way up through the hill into turn number 11, well, Edmunds now wants to come on through as Foyle's made to go to the outside. This is classic stuff as they come through the right-hander here, and well, William Foyle has to wait for another opportunity to try and get back in there as Tom Edmunds is not out of this yet as they make their way through turn number 1. Onto lap number 6 they go, and the GT3 class right now just keeps on giving in terms of brilliant battles as they make their way through the right-hander. They're only just reaching the halfway point of this race, and they've already really gone toe-to-toe. But whilst they're battling for P3 in class, meanwhile Callum Reid Garton here is continually getting closer and closer to the back of Matt Caruana as they make the way down towards turn number 6. As he does, we're hearing that Maurizio Massi has had a moment on circuit. He's had to jump to the pits due to damage to the car, which is very unfortunate. We hope Massi's okay. We can see Callum Reid Garton here, I think, now waiting for that opportunity versus the Audi R8 of Matt Caruana. But of course, the interesting thing about these two cars, the Audi R8 and the Lamborghini Huracan, and we've said it time and time again, you're probably sick of it if you're a regular tuning, both running the same engine, both running the same Audi V10 engine. And what does that mean? It means that down the straight here, it's all about how the balance of performance in the iRacing sprint setup is set in terms of the cars. And we know that the Huracan just has a little bit more of a top speed advantage. As I mean, well, a little bit further up the road, we can see that Edward Lack has had a major moment. I'm not sure what's happened to Lack here, other than the fact he's parked up at turn number 6. What's happened? Well, we have got a little bit of a issue there. Well, it does look as though Lack just parked there by the looks of things. We can't see what exactly has gone wrong for Edward Lack, but as we do look back to our live pictures now, it is the case that, sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen, a slight glitch with our boards, but we are hearing that Matt Edmunds had a moment, and Edmunds just parked there at what is, I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, that's the exit of turn number 10. Now, what has happened to Matt Edmunds? This was making his way down the hill here into turn number 10. He was looking for the move versus Alexander Batak, and as he made his way into the corner here, just simply lost the rear end, although that looks like a little bit of contact between the two of them, albeit not on screen, and I'm wondering if that's an internet connectivity issue that's made it look like contact. But as we can see there, connection issue being said by Martin Brinkworth, Lack is a connection issue, my apologies, and that is the case. We might have just seen a slight connection issue there, which saw contact between Edmunds and Alexander Batak. Well, that's very hard to tell whether Edmunds just stepped the rear out or not. But whilst all that was happening, we do apologise for cutting away and having that slight delay in our replay cameras. We can see Callum Reid Garton here at the inside of Matt Caruana, and he's made it count, or has he? Is Caruana getting a much smoother line here and pretty much saying to Callum Reid Garton, look, I've seen every play in the book. Your teammate Billy Fletcher has done this to me plenty of times. I know what to look out for you Altitude Esports guys. And the privateer absolutely flying as he makes his way onto another lap here. We're almost 10 minutes in, we're almost 2/3 of the way there, and as they make their way up over the hill through 2 and into 3, it is the case that Caruana right now looking very firm in the lead of that GT3 Pro class. He does have Callum Reid Garton putting the pressure on, but I think Caruana just has a little bit extra in reserve. He knows what's coming, and he knows how to read the situation, but we'll wait and see, because Callum Reid Garton, of course, the driver who in the GT3 Championship Season 2 in the Pro category absolutely dominated. As we do see there, that's Chris Daines now starting to scythe his way through the GT3s. Here's the case, the LMP 2 drives now catching up to the GT3 class, and well, they do have to find a way safely round. Of course, the GT3 drivers do not have to immediately give way. There's no blue flags technically as they make the way on through, and we've had the confirmation there. Technical issues from Ed Woodlack himself in the YouTube chat, and I'm sorry to hear that, Ed. It is the case. We do hope that you're able to rejoin for the feature race. As we see here, Chris Daines still flying, but meanwhile, in the LMP class of the drivers remaining, it is the case that Robert Sunik here falling a little bit back as we see Gareth Williams looking for that potential move versus Alex Everett for P3. He's too far back here, and as they make their way out of turn 10, Everett coming up behind the traffic of the GT3 class, Jean-Luc Deschamps in particular, as they both go the inside, but this is going to be very hairy going through turn number 12 here, because the LMPs have got to come through on the inside, the GT3s on the outside, and as they all make their way into turn number 1, it's almost as if you can see them going side by side in that file, where the LMPs have the right to the inside line, but my goodness, that could have been curtains for a number of drives. Thankfully it wasn't, and as they make their way on around here, it's no change in position, but Robert Sunik has been pulled right into this battle for P3 in the LMP class with 4 minutes to go, given the way the traffic has fallen for the two drivers in front of him. And sometimes that's what all this multi-class racing is about. It's the way you catch up to the other class and how you trip over them and knowing when to capitalise on that. And right now the Team Racing Netherlands driver is picking the right time to get close, as he has to find his way past Tom Edmunds and unsettles the rear of the car there on the exit of turn number 7. Now as he makes his way down the back straight here, we do look a little bit further down the road, and we can see, well, William Foyle, after everything he's been through, at one point up in P3 in the GT3 Pro class, now all the way down in P13 overall, that's P6 in the class. And as he makes his way down the back straight here, he's looking to try and find a way past the Italian of Carmelo Mettello, who, to be fair, has had a quiet race in the number 122 machine, but he's been doing very well as he makes his way through turn number 10 here, looking very smart as he comes on through. But meanwhile, we do have to cut here to Alex Everett, who finds a way past Alistair Kurt, and I believe the two drivers, well, Alistair Kurt there, I think was slowed down in the TGC racing machine, because he just gave up that position very willingly, and I would be willing to bet there was some sort of slowdown penalty for track limits that led to Kirk having to give up the space as they make their way down the hill with 3 minutes to go. But as they come roaring on through here, we're in Matthew Hodges has just cut his way past Matthew Addy is there. Alistair Kirk getting the tank slapper coming out of turn number 5. They're just pushing a bit too hard on the throttle early, and as they make their way down into turn number 6 at the moment, here's the case of the TGC racing driver. You can see how much this podium opportunity means to him, and he wants that P2. He wants to be the guy who will be the closest to Chris Daines, who right now I can tell you is 8 seconds off in the distance. He's just run away with this, but we focus on where the action is right now. No offense to Daines, of course, he'll be very active in his cockpit. He'll be full of action because he's concentrating as hard as he possibly can, of course, to get the fastest lap. But we can see here Gareth Williams looking to make the move on Robert Sunik. He's given the space on the inside in the run into the braking zone for turn 10. Robert Sunik, of course, looking to plan the cutback up the hill, but right now Gareth Williams gets that squared off very nicely, and whilst Sunik is right there with him as we ride on board the gearbox of Gareth Williams as the NXTGEN Racing Privateers makes his way out of the corner, you can see Robert Sunik swinging one way, swinging the other way, looking to try and make Gareth Williams defend heavily to the inside, but Williams does not fall for it. He stays in the middle of the road, but you can see Sunik literally looking for every which way to come on through, but he just cannot find a way to get around his opponent. And as they make the way downhill through the S's once again, it's the case that Sunik has to wait for another opportunity, but he's running out of time here. 1.5 minutes to go. He'll have one more lap. As they make the way down towards turn number 6, it is the case that with Sunik running out of time, I do wonder whether he'll dare to think about making a lunge into the turn 10 chicane. He will have the overspeed as they make the way out of the corner, and as we do look to the blimp camera here, as you can see the gap between the two of them. In fact, we do have to cut away from this very briefly, ladies and gentlemen. Callum Reid Garton on his roof there. What happened to Callum Reid Garton? Well, he was making his way down the round only moments ago. He was in P2 in the class, and oh goodness me, into the tyre barrier. And well, his teammate Billy Fletcher just avoiding him, and that is what's happened to Callum Reid Garton. My goodness, that is very unfortunate for Callum Reid Garton, but well, I'm glad to see he's now jumped to the pits, and that result is now long gone, and he will be looking to try and make up for amends in what is the feature race. But one mistake there into the wall on the exit of turn number 5 and flipping the the car. But thankfully, with it being a virtual machine, we do not have to worry about him having to go to the hospital to be checked after that one. It is the case that he can reset the car to the pits and go racing once again in our feature race for tonight. But as we see William Foyle here giving that pursuit of what is Martello as they make the way on the round, we will wait and see as the checker flag will be shortly out. We will hit the 15-minute point, but Foyle continues to chase after Martello for what is now P4 in the GT3 Pro class. As meanwhile, we do get to that 15-minute mark and the checker flag does come on out, and Gareth will, goodness me, and in the rear of your picture there, that is contact, and I think that's one Robert de Sunic and also Alistair Kirk, both off there, but we have to cut away from them because right now the leader of their class makes it out the chicane, and well, what is there to say other than it has been an absolutely fast and ferocious performance as he comes out the final corner. Chris Daines is your overall winner and your LMP2 class winner in the sprint here at Road Atlanta. P2 meanwhile will go to Alex Everett as you see him crossing the line there, and then it will be Gareth Williams, as I'm to understand it, who crosses the line P3, forming our LMP2 podium. But meanwhile, as they all make their way out to the final corner here, Robert Sunic we can see, meanwhile in what is the GT3 Pro cars here, well, he had to hold off quite an offensive from the drivers around him and make his way into the lead, but once he took the lead, he never looked back, and as he makes it out the final corner, Matt Caruana is your GT3 Pro winner here in the sprint at Road Atlanta, ahead of Billy Fletcher, and it is Tom Edmunds who completes the GT3 Pro podium. Carmelo Martello meanwhile will take P4 in a superb drive start to finish. William Foyle P5, and meanwhile in the GT3 AM class, well, he wanted a win, he's got one. It's Matthew Addy from Next Gen Racing with Sam Cases UK who takes the win in the GT3 AM class, and he just hips Alexander Patak to the finish line. Alexander Patak P2, and it's going to be Jochen Siegert who started at the very back. He comes home P3 in the GT3 AMs. A superb performance from Siegert there. Nigel Stock P4, and then it will be Matt Edmunds who comes home P5 in the class. But what a fantastic race from start to finish here in the sprint. Action galore. And well, this man for Rano Motorsport, Chris Daines from Denmark, he will be absolutely grinning from ear to ear. There is no doubt about that with that performance. And I am sure he has got plenty more in the tank for what is the feature race. As we do bring out those results on the left-hand side of your screen. But meanwhile, as you see them all making their way down at the back straight here, well, in fact, making their way out towards turn number 6 here on the cool-down lap as they decide to do it. Matt Caruana, well, a fantastic drive from start to finish for the young Briton, and as he makes way out turn 6 and into 7, of course, our champion in the GT3 Pro class of the Apex Racing Academy lobby in Season 2 of the GT3 Championship, and he was not quite there here at Watkins Glen, but he's found a way to take the win here in the sprint today at Road Atlanta, and could this be a sign of him finally finding that momentum and getting it on board? We will have to wait and see, but to be fair, Billy Fletcher, he'll know he wasn't far behind, and it was the squabbling with him, Caruana, Edmunds, Foyle, and a good number of other drivers, which in a way cost him that potential chance to win and led to him finishing in P2. But I think he'll be proud of that P2. It's something that he can build from. And the same for Tom Edmunds here. He'll be annoyed, I think he didn't quite pick up the win, but he'll be happy to be on the podium, and there's still plenty more out there. He's seen that Porsche now is fast, and he can deploy it. Meanwhile, Matthew Addy here, well, I think he'll be very pleased with the fact that he didn't have the disaster of the sprint race at Watkins Glen, and instead now he's finally secured that win, and his campaign is finally off to the start he wants, as all our drivers make the way into the pits. And well, we will be back, ladies and gentlemen, in somewhere in the region of about 15 to 20 minutes for the build-up to race number 2, the feature race here at Road Atlanta. But until then, don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss it. The racing is not too far away, and my goodness, when we get going for that feature race, you can be sure it's going to be fast, furious, and an absolute roller coaster ride. We'll see you shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. We are back on time for the build-up to race number 2 at the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, marking round 2 of the Proto GT3 Championship. And of course, our focus tonight is on the Apex Racing Academy lobby. The lobby sponsored by the company, which you saw a brief promo there from Apex Racing Academy, and it is the case. They're not just a setup shop, but if you're looking for all things coaching, setup related, through to telemetry tools, and everything in between, Apex Racing Academy is the place to go to. And if you want to know more or you're looking to sign up today, do go to apexracingac.com for further information. But after what was an absolutely frantic opening race here tonight at Road Atlanta, we saw plenty of action. It was a story of multiple differences, where we saw in the LMP class battling in the midfield and for the rest of the podium, but Chris Daines really ran away with proceedings, whereas in the GT3 Pro class there was at one point a 6-way battle for the win, which ended up with Matt Caruana managing to break away after Callum Reid Garton managed to have a major moment coming out of turn number 5 and put his Lamborghini Huracan on its head. But we did see a good battle for the rest of the podium between Billy Fletcher, Tom Edmunds, William Foyle, and also some of the other drivers within that space, including Carmelo Mettello. Let's not forget the Italian stallion there. And then in the GT3 AM class, it was Matthew Addy who managed to pick up his first win in absolutely brilliant form. But of course, with all that in mind, as we now do look to the trackside here, we can see it is the case. All drivers getting in their final laps in this final practice session. We are only what is 2.5 minutes away from going racing once again, and as our drivers are getting ready, it is the case in this final practice they'll be looking just to settle some nerves, get themselves set, and looking to just keep it cool and wait and see what they can do in the build up to our second races tonight. Of course, we go from a 15-minute sprint to a 60-minute feature, and that is 4 times the time distance, and it is the case that with that in mind, it does mean that our drivers will have that mandatory pit stop where they will need to take on fuel. And of course, last time out Watkins Glen, it was the question of fuel saving, with a lot of drivers running out of fuel literally just before the finish line, if not as they went over the finish line. Whereas today, will we see a similar situation? Plus, we had the safety car at Watkins Glen. Could we see another safety car here at Road Atlanta today? Well, we hope not, but of course it is something that our drivers will be very aware of. As we do see Stefan Albanese here, the Italian driver for DRS Esport LMS2, making his way down towards turn number 6. Now, whilst our drivers are getting themselves set, we do need to look into the stream chats there, and we can say hello to Gareth Bills, who's tuning in on YouTube, tuning in from Cape Town, currently on holiday, but we'll be back next week to race, and we look forward to seeing you out on the circuit once again. Gareth Bills, that is, in a week's time. Of course, the GM Racing machine, we do love to see the very distinctive GM Racing Porsche 911 machine making its way around the circuit, and I hope you're doing well, Gareth. And we also see there Darth Vader in the YouTube chat saying, "Guys, I can't race tonight, the circuit looks so good. Damn you, COVID." Well, it's unfortunate, Vader, that you did pick up COVID, but we do wish you all the best, and we do hope that you're enjoying things all the same, albeit not in the cockpit racing, but instead acting as a spectator. We can also see Digital Car Culture there, the fantastic online magazine for all things relating from arcade racing through to sim racing on the PC. If you do want to follow a magazine in relation to all the different sort of games, and it's not just on PC, in fact also on the consoles as well, go to DCC, that's Digital Car Culture, check them out, you won't regret it, I can definitely tell you that. And of course, run by an absolutely brilliant gentleman, Colin Hibbert, the manager, and well, I do imagine that Digital Car Culture growing and going from strength to strength. As we also see there Martin Brinkworth, who clarified earlier that Edward Lack had the connection issue, and Lack subsequently clarified in the YouTube chat there was a technical issue with his virtual reality headset. And we can also see then say hello to Jerry the race car driver in the YouTube chat, and also Nathan Scott there from TGC Racing saying, "Alistair, better win it or bin it." And he is referring to, of course, one Alistair Kirk here, as we see Alistair Kirk making his way through turn number 1. And it is time then, ladies and gentlemen, for the gridding procedure for our feature race, and of course the reverse grid now. So let's take a look at that grid going into race number 2. It is, of course, separated by car class, and we see Adam Delmont from Excite Racing lines up on pole position, taking to the front row alongside his teammate Dan Skinner there. Behind them, Alistair Kirk and Robert Assoon, the TGC Racing driver, and alongside him is Robert Assoon from Team Racing Netherlands. And now in row number 3, it is Gareth Williams, the privateer from NXTGEN Racing, and alongside him Alex Everett for Crest Autosport with Apex Tracks. Chris Daines, our winner, of course, in race number 1 here tonight for Verano Motorsport, and he is joined by Phil McDougall, who in the end did not complete enough of the race distance to be qualified for the reverse grid procedure. And Edward Lack there, of course, with those technical issues, starting at P9 for 6, our Project Black on row number 5, and he shares that row with pole position man at 4 with the GT3s. That's the GT3 AM driver of Ben Payne from Crest Autosport Ferrari. Row number 6, meanwhile, is Callum Reid Garton, followed up by Morten Est Usus, the GT3 Pro driver there, taking pole position for the GT3 Pro class. Close enough to be going for the win in the sprint race, but in that unfortunate instant, seeing the Altitude Esports driver having to retire, but he completed enough of the distance to be eligible for the reverse grid, and that means he will be starting in P11 with Ustus alongside him there, the privateer, and he will be starting in that P12 position. Behind them, Stuart P. Taylor from TGC Racing, and alongside the AM driver there will be the GT3 Pro driver of Stefan Albanese for DRS Esport LMS2, and then behind them it will be Matt Edmunds, the GT3 AM driver, having a difficult opening race of the proceedings with that moment, of course, that dropped him down the order, and Nigel Stock will be alongside the Next Gen Racing with Sam Case's UK driver. Nigel Stock will go from Crest Autosport with Apex Tracks. They'll be starting 15th and 16th. On row number 9, meanwhile, it is the case that we do have Jochen Seeger, and he'll be joined the privateer alongside by Hilliard Esports Alexander Batak there, the Dane, starting in P18. Matthew Addy for Next Gen Racing with Sam Case's UK starting P19. The Briton joined by the Briton of Matthew Hodges for CXR Project Black in P20. Gavin Gardner, the Verano Motorsport GT3 driver, joined by Jean-Louis Deschamps in P22 there. And then behind them it is William Foyle and Carmelo Motello, who complete row number 12 with the Crest Autosport with the Apex Tracks driver just ahead of DRS Esport LMS's 1 driver. The two of them having a great rivalry in the opening race. Will we see that rivalry continue here in race number 2? And then looking even further down the grid there on row number 13 is Tom Edmunds from RD Simsport, and alongside him is Billy Fletcher from Altitude Esports there. Billy Fletcher and Tom Edmunds, that rivalry seeming to simmer, and when will it hit the boiling point? When will it overflow out of the pan? We'll have to wait and find out. With Matt Caruana starting off our final row, and it'll be Maurizio Massi who starts last but not least because he did not complete enough of the race distance to be eligible for the reverse grid, and therefore he starts one place behind our race winner in the GT3 class overall, in the GT3 Pro class of Matt Caruana, as the two of them will be making up our final row as the grid makes its way down here in the build-up to what is race number 2. And of course we are not too far away right now as all our drivers are making their way down the back straight here. As we do look to the front of the field, Adam Delmon and Skinner, of course Dan Skinner, the Excite Racing drivers, I do wonder whether some team orders will come into play, whether some teamwork will come into play for them to try and hold the field behind them and one of them to potentially break away. We'll have to wait and see if they make their way down towards turn 10. We saw some battling between the two of them, to be fair, and now we'll have to wait and see whether they battle for the lead into turn 1 or whether they have already settled on some sort of order, some sort of plan, as the safety car will shortly peel away into the pits as they make their way through 11. And then it will be to Adam Delmon and Dan Skinner from Excite Racing to take us away for the feature race this evening. And it's lights out and away we go then for race number 2 tonight here at Road Atlanta as they make their way across the timeline, and immediately their Skinner getting a better start. Delmon being swarmed as Alistair Kurt right on the inside here and making a double move. Robert Asuni round the outside. Oh goodness, we've got 2 drivers off there. That's Phil Madu and Alex Everett as they both look to rejoin, but as they make their way back onto the circuit, we can see here Callum Reid Garton getting a monster start by comparison, and Stuart P. Taylor meanwhile drops down the order to a degree. Morten Estusu is just behind him here as they make their way up to speed through the S's, and it does look as though we've got Matt Edmunds there who's turned sideways over the crest of the ridge at turn number 4, and I'm not sure what's happened to Matt Edmunds other than he's got it wrong, but meanwhile we can see a bit further up the order. Here's the case in the GT3s with Stuart Taylor off to a good start, nothing like Callum Reid Garton, but still getting it relatively right, and Ustu's right on his 6 as they make their way out of turn number 6 and into 7, and you can see how close Ustus is getting there as they make their way out of the corner, now down that back straight as they come right on down here. With BMW looks distant, but I can assure you will get very close very soon. And that slipstream as Phil McDougall is rejoining and getting himself into the order as Ed Lack is in the pit. Well, he's got a lap down as Ed Lack. I think Lack has had a disastrous start to straight. I don't even think he's out on the circuit right now. I may be wrong. You see McDougall there trying to cut his way on through the GT3s, but he can't find a way on through. As meanwhile, making his way gradually up the order here. You can see side by side there with William Foyle. That's not William Foyle, my apology. Oh, goodness me! And there's a car being turned, and who is that who's just been turned? I think that's Maurizio Massi. No, it's not. That has got to be then. That's Ben Payne who's been turned, the GT3 AM driver, as they're making their way through the chicane there. And here's the case that Ben Payne was turned the Crest Autosport Ferrari driver. But after the opening lap then, it is Dan Skinner who currently leads in the LMP2 category ahead of Robert Dasunik, who's in hot pursuit. Alistair Kurt P3, both drivers sharing great overtakes into the opening corner, but Robert Dasunik getting the upper hand. Adam Telmont P4, P4, followed by Gareth Williams P5. Next, Chris Daines P6, and then Alex Everett P7, who's got a lot of ground to make up after that mistake on the opening lap. Phil McDougall has gone to the pits. He's come into the pits. I'm not sure if that's to repair damage to the car, alternatively to potentially retire. We'll have to wait and see. Edward Lack, I think, did not make the starting procedure for this race due to technical issues. We are waiting to find out. Meanwhile, we can see it's Callum Reid Garton who leads in the GT3 overall, GT3 Pro, as well as Delmont here and Daines. Oh, goodness me, and Daines going up the inside of the pair of them as they make their way out to the final corner. And now let's take a look back at that very shortly. But before we do, will Daines be going for a move here versus Alistair Kirk? He does look for it, and Kirk cuts to the inside at the last possible moment there. I think that's the latest you can go before the stewards would frown upon it. And you can see that Daines has lost a bit of momentum there, but Daines is wasting no time in going for moves. And my goodness, the man is absolutely flying. Well, how did he make those moves happen, you ask? Well, let's find out. This was, oh goodness me, this was only, no, that's not the right moment there, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. So as they made their way down into turn number 10 there, you can see it was the case, in fact, that it was Gareth Williams there going very slowly, and actually Delmont having to nurse his way on past, and Daines just said, well, if you two are going to be slow about it, I'll get it done straight away, thank you very much. And then we saw the rest of it from there, but Daines literally just seeing an opportunity and seizing it. And now, well, you can see he's trying to hug the back of the slipstream there of what is Alistair Kirk. In the rear of your picture there, Gareth Williams on the offensive and making his way past Delmont. As meanwhile, Robert Asunik here battling side by side on exit at turn number 10 through the chicane and over the hill. He's going to try and have to go around all the way around the outside here versus Skinner, and he's going to get it done in the end. And what did it cost him? Not too much time at all as he makes his way down to turn 1. Will Skinner try and come back? I don't think so. And let's just take a look at that move for what was the lead of the LMP class. So as they're making their way down into the braking zone here, Dasunik had the overspeed due to the slipstream and up the inside. But to be fair, Skinner did not give in. He decided to hold that inside line and made Dasunik have to work his way on around. But then from that point onwards, Dasunik got the better traction out the corner. And then it was just a long run down. He had to commit. And we can see that Skinner kept his nose in, but it wasn't enough. And then it was the case that Dasunik took the lead, as now they come up behind some early GT3 traffic there. And that is Matt Edmunds. Well, no, Matt Edmunds is the next car up the road. And I believe that is Ben Payne, who has yielded, as we see there, I believe, a very rare mistake, in fact, from Alistair Kirk. He went a bit wide coming out of turn number 7. He's going to be side by side with Daines in the run down the back straight here. You can see Gaz Williams, meanwhile, tucking in behind the pair of them here. Will he make it 3 wide down to the chicane? I doubt it. He's too closely packed in. But it's going to be Daines on the outside here, and Alistair Kirk holds the inside in the run through, and Kirk retains the position for now. That's P3 in class, but you have to imagine Daines is going to find a way through. It's not about if, it's when he's going to go for it, and when will it come, and if Alistair Kirk's going to be ready for it, as they make the way into another lap here, and the fastest lap in their class set by Alex Everett at 109.711, and Daines already looking for that move up into turns 2 and 3. He can't find it at the moment. There's not the space to do so. As they make their way down the hill, I can tell you that meanwhile, Callum Reid Garton breaking away with an advantage of 7.5 seconds. Meanwhile, P2 in the GT3s, and it's the GT3 Pro battle here. We can see Stefan Albanese defending on the inside versus Matthew Hodges, and Hodges coming on strong as he goes for the cutback there. But Albanese taking a very smart, lazy apex there, where he just simply dragged the car across the apex curve, and it blocked off Hodges and actually really stunted Hodges' momentum. You are allowed to do that. It's not a dangerous line. It's the case the driver attacking has to respect it for the cutback, and Hodges now has to move up the inside here, but will he be able to get it fully alongside? Not quite. He doesn't have the momentum up the hill, and Albanese right now turning it into a freeway fight for P2 as they make the way through the right-hander. That's P10 overall, of course, and you can see it is the case that Matthew Hodges here having to think about defending now versus William Foyle, who we ride on board with. And William Foyle, to be fair, the Cresta Autosport driver here, we saw how strong he was in Season 2 of the GT3 Championship. I say that, and then Albanese, oh goodness me, and Albanese with a major oversteer moment there into the wall, and the Audi driver, well, it was all going so well, and I think he just pushed it a little bit too hard, and now it started to go a bit wrong. Let's take a look back at what happened. Making his way through the corner, he's gone a little bit wide of apex, gone up onto that exit curve, and it is just simply the elevation of the curve that sent the rear of the car into an unsettled situation, and then he's had a little whack with the wall, but he's been able to turn it around rather rapidly there, and Stefan Albanese has dropped all the way down from what was P2 in class down to P10 in the GT3 Pro class, as meanwhile making his way up the order is Matt Caruana here, and he's following Billy Fletcher for as the two of them nose to tail there, and you can see Tom Edmunds right at the front of it. It's always you three, as the famous line in the Harry Potter movies and the Harry Potter books goes, and indeed if you're wondering what that's about, that's Professor McGonagall talking to Harry Potter, Ron Weasley and Hermione, and it's always these three who are together on circuit right now. We love to see it, to be fair. We're not going to complain about it, because I do think that right now these three plus Callum Reid Garton, albeit Reid Garton's a bit further up the road, it is going to be an incredibly close season of race in the GT3 Pro class for the title. If this is a sign of things to come, we have got a lot to look forward to, but right now we stay focused on the racing here and now, and where you can see Tom Edmunds being boxed in a little bit here by Stuart Taylor. To be fair, the GT3 AM driver a position ahead. He doesn't have to yield here at all. The AMs do not have to give way to the pros in the GT3 class. You can see Edmunds there really getting his nose in. There's a little bit of contact between the two of them, and I will wonder whether it was the case. Edmunds will feel he had his nose in there, and Stuart Taylor closed him to the line. It's very close, and I think the stewards are going to have to look very closely at that, because how much of an overlap was there on corner entry, as meanwhile Alistair Kirk is into the wall at turn number 6, and well, that is not what he would have wanted. What happened to Alistair Kirk? So he's trying to make his way round the outside of the number 73 car, Dan Skinner, and there was a tiny tap there, the smallest of taps, and Alistair Kirk into the wall. He'll have a small bit of aero damage on the rear, but it won't cost him too much, as meanwhile that means that Chris Daines now has one less car to worry about, as he makes his way past Skinner up the inside there into the turn 10 chicane, and well, Daines is now only 2.2 seconds over Robert Dasunik, but one thing we do know about Robert Dasunik, he's not going to give up the lead when he's got the lead. He will fight tooth and nail to hold on to that lead, and right now as they make the way through the GT3 class traffic for them, we see going off circuit as Maurizio Massi, who's done a bit of rallycross along with Stefan Albanese, the two DRS eSport drivers going off in sequence there, and well, meanwhile Chris Daines now has to pick his way through the GT3s, and Dan Skinner, well, he's come up behind all this chat. Oh goodness me, and that's Robert Dasunik, who's had a major spin there, and well, what's happened to Robert Dasunik? Making his way down into the corner as he made his way through 2. Car was fine, came into 4, and there's, well, that looked like a little bit of a tap there on the rear of Jean-Louis Deschamps' car and into the wall. And then, well, it was the case that he just had to simply roll the car through and try to avoid being picked up by anybody on the way. And I think for the most part he did avoid any contact with any further drivers. That is the case of Robert Dasunik having a major horror moment there, and he's gone all the way from the lead of the LMP class to P8 of the runners there, as we're hearing that Phil Matu is out, and I believe Edward Lack is out of circuit. I do believe he's managed to get out of circuit in the end, and I think it might have been a glitch on our timing screen, in fact, in terms of where he was, because he wasn't on our timing screen for such a long time. I think he was always in this race, but it is the case he wasn't registered. He's 12.5 seconds off Alistair Kirk right now as he makes his way down the back straight. But meanwhile, whilst he's making his way down the back straight, his peers are making their way into turn number 1, and we do see here Gareth Williams tucked in very close behind Dan Skinner right now, as Chris Daines is just a bit further up the head. He's in the lead of the LMP class and navigating his way through the traffic, it should be pointed out. But you can see that right now Williams all over the back of what is Skinner. In fact, he's falling back a little bit as Everett's now all over the back of Williams, and of course they make their way out of the corner here. It's going to be very nip and tuck. As you can see further up the road now is Daines. He breaks away, and Williams here has to cut his way round what is round 2 of the GT3 Pro class cars, or the GT3 AM class cars, I should actually clarify. And that's Ustus and Batak who are working together, and you can see it is the case that Williams now, as he charges down this back straight here, the privateer under a lot of pressure and trying to put pressure on Skinner at the same time. Meanwhile, with all this going on, Foyle battling with Hodges here for P2 in the GT3 Pro class and GT3s overall, and it does look as though Foyle's got it done just about as they make them out the corner. But meanwhile, Billy Fletcher here makes it 2 wide with one at Matthew Hodges as they come through turn number 12. They come to the end of the lap here. We're only 10 minutes in, and we've got overtakes galore as they make their way down towards turn number 1. And it is the case. You see Matt Caruana coming up the inside here. Hodges is being swamped with overtakes, and it is the case. I don't think Hodges knows which way to defend right now. Not discrediting him at all. It is the case. He's just being attacked at the worst possible time by LMPs, by GT3s, and well, it's all out sequence. So you see he has to give way there for the S's, and that is a horrible place to have to yield to an LMP as he unsells the car, and there's contact there with Alistair Kirk, but he just about brings the car to a stop to avoid sending Kirk wide. And I believe Adam Delmont has had a moment off circuit. I'm not exactly sure where Delmont is right now. Where is Delmont? There he is, but he has had a moment off in the run down through the S's. That just shows you how difficult it is. And Ed Lack is already gaining. He's up to P6 now, and Lack continues to charge up through the order. But meanwhile, we look in the battle for P2 in the LMP2 class here as they make the way side by side down the back straight here. It's Everett on the inside. It is Skinner on the outside. In fact, no, it's Everett on the outside. My apologies, Skinner on the inside. He's going to be outside now as Everett as he comes to the second part of the chicane. And a classic switchback move, but Williams comes on back here up the inside, and well, I think Everett in the end backed out of it, because my goodness, if he hadn't, that would have been very close curtain call for the pair of them. But Williams not yielding at all as they make their way onto another lap here. They go onto lap number 11. The GT3s are a lap down on lap number 10, and well, the opening 10 minutes or so of this race have been absolutely intense. As meanwhile, oh goodness me, what has happened to William Foe? He's pointing in the wrong direction, and well, Billy Fletcher now is P2 in the GT3s overall in GT3 Pro class. Let's take a look at what happened to Foyle. This was only moments to go, and that's Fletcher on the inside, and well, it doesn't look like there was contact there, but it looks like he was turned around, but it's very hard to see from that camera angle. Did Foyle just simply lock the rear up under braking and get it wrong? That is the question. But it's definitely the case that for Foyle, whatever's happened, he's now dropped a long way down the order. And he's all the way down in what is P8, that is P19 in class, and that's promoted this man and his pursuers of Matt Caruana and Tom Edmunds. That is Billy Fletcher from Altitude Esports here as they make their way down the back straight, and well, Fletcher is starting to break away a little bit here. Now as they make their way down into where's the chicane, a bit further down the order, and not to be forgotten about, we haven't really talked about our GT3 AM drivers too much yet. Martinez who's had a brilliant start, and in fact we should get that team name updated, because that is Hilliard Esport there. That is not a privateer machine. He makes his way through the right hand there of turn number 10, and we can see a retirement there for Stuart Taylor by the looks of things, as well as Phil Madugas. We've got 2 drivers out of this race so far, and sorry to hear that. I hope everything's okay. But as they make their way around onto another lap, we do see Ustus making his way through turn number 1 and doing everything he can right now to just simply keep those laps on coming as he flows on through. And as we can see him here rolling down the BMW M4 here, looking very good as he flows on through. And we get our time screens updated with the correct team name there, but behind him we can see Alexander Batak. Well, he has got Nigel Stock closing at a very rapid rate of knots as the two of them make their way down this straight in towards turn number 6 here. And Nigel Stock looking very good right now is the Crest Autosport with Apex Tracks driver. And to be fair, when we had the chance to catch up with a number of drivers, I had the chance to catch up with Nigel Stock, and he was saying, as he makes his way out turn number 7, he was saying in the pre-race chat that he was hoping to have a better round compared to Watkins Glen in the season opener, and he's having a much better round so far. I can definitely tell you that, as he swarms all over the back of Alexander Batak here, and he's looking up the inside in the run down through 9 into the chicane braking zone for 10, and as he makes his way in the air, you can see he backs off a little bit on that inside line, not willing to go deep, but in return, Batak understeers deep into the corner, and Stock is going to be on the inside here as they roll over the crest down into turn number 12, and will he be hold on with Jean-Louis Deschamps? I think he's going to help here by putting his way on through, and you can see behind Carmelo Metello makes the move, and Jean-Louis Deschamps there, who has to back off. I think Jean-Louis Deschamps just simply ran out a bit of momentum, and William Foyle coming through as well. I'm not sure what happened to Deschamps unless he had some sort of slowdown, but it was I think there was a bit of oversteer on the exit of turn number 12 for Jean-Louis Deschamps, because he took a lot of apex curb in a car that is very sensitive to curbs on that rear end. You can actually see it twitching in the run down through the S's, and Jean-Louis Deschamps, well, in P20 right now, the Delta Motorsport driver, racing as a privateer. Delta Motorsport, as I understand it, are not fully registered as a competing team in this series in terms of the team's championship. I could be wrong, my memory may be a little bit foggy, but it is the case of Belgium right now looking for another opportunity in short order as they come rip-roaring on through the corners once again here, and now on to that back straight as they make their way down. It is the case that we do look to Adam Delmont, who are all over the back of Ed Lack. We look back up to our LMP2 class cars here, and as they make the way through the right-hander of turn number 1 here, you can see they're boxed in by the traffic. And that's Ben Payne here, and to be fair, Lack trying to find a way through, trying to just sort of say to Payne, can you possibly move? But in the end, they both have to settle. But he does get a nice exit there out of 4, does Edward Black. And as a result, it does mean that Delmont lose out as Hodges is into the pits. He's the first of our scheduled stop, and Matthew Hodges coming on in here for what we believe is a scheduled stop. This is an attempt at a major undercut, there's no doubt about that. But meanwhile, all the way down the order after his spin on the opening lap at turns 2, 3 and 4, Matt Evans here looking to try and come on through versus Ben Payne, and as they roll him through the right-hander, he is the best part of 35.5 seconds down now on the next drive up the road. It's going to be side by side here. This is the battle for P7 in the GT3, P6 in the GT3 AM class, and you can see just that straight line speed of the Ferrari, that straight line acceleration as they make the way down the back straight. Evans has to back out and look to try and find a way through into the chicane. And Evans just not having the day that he wants. He tries to go around the outside to inside. He looks for that cutback. In fact, he does a double switch back to another outside line, but he's just not got that momentum. But as he comes over the ridge, he does get the momentum down into 12. Payne gives him the space on the inside there. And I think in the end, Payne may have realised that Evans was going to come through, and I think Payne's decided, you know what, I'll fight it, but I'm not going to fight it too hard because we're just costing one another time. Because the gap between them and the next driver, Matthew Hodges, 21.2 seconds. But do keep in mind that Matthew Hodges has taken a pit stop, and really they are hunting after Stefan Albanese, who is the best part of 36 seconds up the road from the pair of them as they make the way on, down and around. As they roll them through the corners here, we are hearing from Phil McDougall there in the YouTube chat to say all practice, but in the race session the front end just won't turn in, need to look at the setup. And well, McDougall, very sorry to hear that, but we do hope to see you back out on circuit for round number 3 in a week's time. And indeed, sorry to see there Taylor saying about not being able to race in the league, and in the YouTube chat not being able to race in the league anymore, but we do hope to see it out on circuit in a week's time, Stuart Taylor. But can appreciate it may have been a frustrating night for you, and our thoughts are with you as we do meanwhile look at Alex Everett here making his way down through turns 2 through to 4, and as he comes right on down here chasing after Gaz Williams still and looking for a potential overtake. I think it's going to be a little while away, but meanwhile, whilst they're looking for an overtake, battling for position, battling for P2 in the GT3 Pro class right now, P10 overall, Carolina versus Billy Fletcher, and as they roll on through, we can see it is the case that Carolina gets the move done there versus Fletcher. A standard up the inside and defend through the second part of the chicane, but to be fair at the same time, I don't think Fletcher's going to fight it too hard. They'll save their fighting to the end of the race. These two, of course, great friends off circuit, great rivals on circuit, the rivalry dating all the way back to the GT3 Championship Season 1 here at Next Gen Racing on iRacing, where we saw Billy Fletcher was our pro champion in the end. Then in Season 2, the rivalry went down to the wire between the two of them again, but it was Matt Carolina who took the championship, and well, of course, it's one apiece of the two of them. They'll be looking to settle the score as a best of 3 and see who picks up the championship this time around. But could it be the case that Tom Edmunds behind him, you can see looming there, not too far behind, only a second behind the pair, could he be the one to make it one championship apiece for the 3 of them? You never know. We've got a long way to go as they make the way on around. As they do, meanwhile, Jean-Louis Deschamps here chasing after Martello as they make the way down what is the run to turn number 6, and he is looking for a way on through is the Belgian as he comes to the right-hander here in that Porsche 911. We ride on board for a brief while here as he rolls them through the right, as we're hearing that Tom Edmunds has had a slight connectivity issue, unless I'm very much mistaken. Alternatively, if that is a connectivity issue, it may be a retirement, but we'll wait and find out for you. But we see Jean-Louis Deschamps here running out to straight line speed as he makes his way down this straight, and as he heads up towards turn at number 10 here. We hear the whine from the Porsche engine as he comes down to that braking zone, just not able to find a way on through as he goes to the right-hander. I think Tom Edmunds may have retired from this race. He's dropped all the way down the order and into the... Oh, goodness me. And, well, Deschamps there having a bit of an off, and I wonder... That's LMP's coming through. That's why he's having the off there. And, well, he took some evasive action as the LMP drivers come roaring on through. And, well, let's just take a look back at that from an exterior perspective. As he's making his way up and over the crest here, he gave the space, he gave a bit too much in fact, and also Alexander Patak almost doing the same than the GT3 and Mercedes as they got themselves back up to speed in the end. But that could have been curtains for the pair of drivers as we are here, and I think it is technical issues for Tom Edmunds, and that is a disaster for Edmunds, who has seen it all go wrong. He has retired from this race unless he can suddenly get back into it, and we are hearing as well that Edward Latt is experiencing technical issues once again. So we have had 2 more retirements in this race, and that is very unfortunate to hear, and it's not what we want to hear. That is now 4 drivers out of the proceedings here at Road Atlanta in the feature, as we continue to see 24 drivers on the circuit at this time as they make their way on around. Meanwhile, it is the case that we still have this freeway battle for P2 in the LMP class, and of course overall, and it is Alex Everett at the head of the pack, Gareth Williams in P3, and then behind them we have TGC's racing what is Alistair Kirk, as all 3 drivers absolutely scrambling for position here, making their way onto another lap, onto another 19 they go, and as they make their way up the hill, we can see there is the case of Delmont lifting off because he is a lap down from these drivers. We're hearing that Skinner is into the pit lane. I presume that is for his scheduled stop. But you can see Gareth Williams right now being hounded by Alistair Kirk, who is so close to in touching distance. They make their way out of the corner, and well, it is the case that Kirk gets the better run here, but they have the traffic to deal with in the form of Massey as they make their way down into turn number 6, and well, they all settle down in the end, but Alistair Kirk just trying everything he can. He is throwing the book at the situation to try and find a way on through, but he just cannot find a space, an opening where Williams is completely vulnerable, and that's so frustrating as a driver. But he's got a lot of time to go here as he makes his way down the back straight, and we can see you there in the YouTube chat, Ed Black confirming that you've had those technical issues with the VR headset again. I'm really sorry to hear that. I hope those technical issues go away for round number 3, because we do want to see the CXR Project Black LMP machines and the full glory out of the circuit. There'll be Matthew Hodges who flies the CXR Project Black flag now in the GT3 class, as we see Kirk here having to look to the inside versus Williams, who in turn was taking a little bit of a look to the inside versus Everett, and also covering off Kirk. These 3 just not knowing when to give up, and it's fantastic to see. And well, we do hope, of course, the fighting does not carry on in terms of going up the ante all the way to the point where one of them takes the other out. We love to see it clean, but not too aggressive as they make their way out of turn number 5. But of course, these 3 veteran of racing series and iRacing, and indeed multiple sim champions in their own right, and as they make their way through the right hand here, you can imagine as they come through 6 and into 7, they'll all be playing the chess game of when do I go for that all-important move. As you can see there, Ben Payne on the outside of turn 7 thinking, okay, here comes the LMPs once again as they make their way down that back straight. As they come charging down right now, things have settled down a little bit across the rest of the field, particularly the GT3 field. Although I say that, they just passed the battle for P2 in the form of what is there, Billy Fletcher tucked in behind Matt Caruana. But it has been the case since Matt Caruana has got ahead of Billy Fletcher, the 2 of them have tucked in nose to tail, and I think they are both settling in to a bit of a rhythm right now. And I say that as Alex Everett into the pits from P2 in the LMP2 class here. I do wonder whether the LMP2s are potentially looking at a 2-stopper today, because they're pitting around the 20-minute to 24-minute mark here. I wonder if that feels quite critical, or whether Everett is just going for the mother of all undercuts here. We'll have to wait and find out, because the other LMP2 drivers have pitted are Skinner, Dasunik, and also what is Adam Delmont as they make their way through it. But meanwhile, Billy Fletcher into the pits as well, so he's decided to go early here, try and get himself to track position. Look at that circuit map right now. You'll see that when Fletcher comes out of the pit lane, he will have a huge amount of track to himself here, because Chris Daines right now, our overall race leader and the LMP2 class leader, who I should point out is 12 seconds clear from his peers, and we're not even at the halfway point of this race yet. Chris Daines right now, he'll be coming around through turn 10 very shortly, and in that mind, it will be the situation whereby Daines will be, well, he's coming into the pits. They are coming in. It is fuel, I think they are on critical fuel, and Alistair Kirk here going quite slowly, unless I'm very much mistaken. He's run out of fuel as Alistair Kirk. Surely that's running out of fuel. And we can see there Stuart Taylor in the YouTube chat saying Kirk's going to run out of fuel. Well, it's happened, and he's creeping around right now. But I think Alistair Kirk, he's got to go uphill to get into the pit lane. If he can clear this ridge, it'll be downhill after that. Fingers crossed. I think he's just going to make it, but that has cost him very dearly, and that will definitely put him behind Alex Everett when he comes out of the pits. I think this race is a 2-stop for the LMP drivers. It is the case that fuel not going the distance, and as he comes on in, it is the case that Alistair Kirk just about makes it to his pit box. He's got a long way to go to that pit box, however. It's going to be close here. He won't want to have to jump to the pits. That will set him back a whole lap. I think he is just going to make it, as we see some of our GT3 drivers coming in, including Gavin Gardner there coming in for his pit stop. And it will be the 1 pit stop for our GT3 drivers, unless we are going against the script. As we see Gardner parking up, and behind him there Carmelo Mettello as well. And meanwhile, whilst all this is going on, it is the case the battles have spaced out to a degree now in this race. And as a result, we are now in that strategic phase. We'll wait to see how the strategy plays on out. But we can see Callum Reid Garton here leading the GT3 class right now, our GT3 Pro driver. The best spot 9 seconds ahead of Matt Caruana as he makes his way on through it. Matt Caruana, of course, in that P2 position, just making his way now down into the turn at number 10 chicane. You see behind him there, Alexander Patak, a lap down is Patak, but he is currently P2 in what is the GT3 AM class. And Patak, to be fair, I think has had a pit stop, unless I'm very much mistaken. Yes, he has had a pit stop, and actually the majority of our GT3 AM drivers have already pitted. The only one who hasn't pitted is Ustus right now. And with that in mind, I wonder if they're all trying to go for the undercut versus the leader. We'll have to wait and find out. But we can see William Foyle, meanwhile, P3 in the GT3 Pro class, but yet to pit. And right now he'll be just digging deep and looking to put in solid lap after lap. But whilst he has yet to pit, this man has pitted, and that is Carmelo Vitello, the DRS Esports LMS1 driver, chasing after one Gavin Gardner as they make the way out of the final corner in the early sequence corners all the way through turns 6 and 7. And that's that long round down the back straight, really going into the final portion of the lap. And you can see Martello losing out a little bit on the exit turn 7 there, but trying to close on up. But whilst the pit stops have been happening, of course, one pit stop which you're thinking about is Everett versus Gareth Williams. Gaz Williams in short, and you can see that after the pit stops, the Next Gen Racing driver has come back out behind Everett. He has not jumped Everett in the pits. It is the case that Everett has stayed back ahead, and as they make their way through turn number 5 here, the battle between the two of them carries on. But of course, the one absentee now is Alistair Kirk, who ran out of fuel just before his pit stop in the run down the back straight. And Gareth Williams right now, I think he's got to think of some sort of way, some sort of tactic which will enable him to get past Alex Everett. Well, what can he do? I would argue if he can't overtake on circuit, he needs to think about that next pit stop, because the fuel's going to run out. And as they make their way down the back straight here, I think it will be one of those situations whereby Williams might do a bit of fuel saving behind Eric. Perhaps he can do some short shifting and a bit of lift and coast into the corners, the standard techniques for saving some fuel, and use the slipstream of Everett down that back straight to make up the difference and not lose overall race time as they come on through. But as they make their way past the pit entry into the pits, having entered the pits, we have William Foyle and Morten Estus. We also have Jean-Louis Deschamps and also Massey there, and I believe that's a retirement for Massey, because we've just seen him come up as registered as out on our screen. So we have our 5th retirement, and we are just nearing the halfway point of this second race at Road Atlanta today as we look back out onto circuit. And after his pit stops and whatnot, well, it has been the case, it started off on a very negative note for one Matt Edmunds, but he seems to be coming back into the play right now as he chases after Alexander Patak, and as they make the way down the back straight here. I do wonder, given the fact that Ustus is yet to pit, in fact Ustus is now in the pit, I wonder how close they'll all come out together here in that GT3 class. We will wait and see as Ustus is making his way to the pit exit. He's left it and now he's making his way down towards the pit exit line. And in fact, as he comes up through here, it's the case the Hilliard Esports driver has got a huge advantage here of somewhere in the region of about 10 seconds, unless I'm very much mistaken, as Patak makes his way up the hill here. It is working out very nicely for the Danish outfit, and as they make the way down and around, it is the case that right now it is Hilliard Esports P1, P2 with Matt Edmunds from Next Gen Racing with Sam Cases UK on the offensive in P3 and trying to find the win in this race as we near that halfway point. Only half a minute to go before we get exactly the halfway point. And this race right now, much like the sprint, has delivered so much in such a short period of time. As into the pits, so that was Matt Caruana. He's now exiting the pits. Where is Billy Fletcher, I hear you ask? Here is Billy Fletcher. You can see Caruana there briefly in the camera, but I think Caruana's already exiting the pits. He's building up speed, and Billy Fletcher going for that undercut. It has not worked out for Billy Fletcher in terms of gaining an advantage. He's taken track position, yes, but in return, he's now 2.2 seconds down on that Caruana, and he's got the LMP of Delmont looking to find a way past once they've done the S's and come through turn number 5. Now Fletcher at this point, of course, in his mind will be thinking about the fact it's not worked out. He can't afford to lose any more race time. He's got to go on the offensive whilst his tyres are in the better temperature window compared to Caruana, who's got slightly cold tyres during the pit stop as they make their way through turns 6 and 7 here. But it has not worked out for Fletcher. He's got to be more inventive, as meanwhile we see here Matt Edmunds on the offensive versus Patak, and Nigel Stott getting in the mix as Nigel Stott loses the rear on that inside line and into the wall. and just a little bit too sharp on the brakes there for Nigel Stock on that tie inside line, and what was looking to be a very good performance and a chance at a podium is now a crumpled front end on that Mercedes, and well, it's going to be P5 at the moment in the GT3 M class, but has he got too much damage? Does he need to come in and repair? We'll have to wait and see. Stock there with a rare mistake. Over the course of the preceding start, he's been looking very good, but just a mistake has cost him dearly as he gets himself back up to speed. Now, I can tell you that whilst he is looking to try and find his way back into the race, Matt Edmunds has lost a bit to Alexander Patak. He's dropped to 8/10 of a second down, but he is on this back straight, of course. He is using the slipstream to close on up as they make the way down, but you can see how the LMPs are closed up once again with Alex Everett here frantically flashing his lights to try and tell Matt Edmunds, look, I'm coming, I need you to get out of the way because I've got Gaz Williams behind, and you can see Gaz Williams there not able to find a way past both GT3s. I think he's timed this just about right. He does have to lift off the throttle a little bit on corner exit there, but it won't cost him too dearly as they make the way down through turn number 12. He's still 7.5 tenths off of Alex Everett as they go on to another lap here. They go on to their 27th tour of the circuit in this feature race, and we are over the halfway distance now. So to give you a summary of that race order as it currently stands in the overall standings, Chris Daines currently your leader overall and in the LMP2 class. He started, of course, at the back of the LMP class, so those classified for the reverse grid. He found his way through the order rather rapidly, and since getting to the front of the pack, he's not given up or given way. It is the case that it has been the case that Chris Daines has flown away with things, much like in the sprint. He is 11.5 seconds clear of Alex Everett here in P2, who has the fast charging Gaz Williams behind him, the two of them battling for that P2 position and ready to be the best of the rest in class. Gaz Williams there in P3, been looking very offensive versus Alex Everett, but he's not been able to find a way to convert that pace into a proper move on Everett. Everett seems to have had an answer for everything. I think he's just sizing things up and looking about a second stop here. We are expecting all of our LMP2 drivers to make a second stop in this race to take on extra fuel. We will wait and see how that plays out in practice, but perhaps he's looking at some fuel saving, you never know. Dan Skinner, meanwhile, P4 here, in a bit of a world of his own, the Racing driver, and putting in lap after lap, consistent pace being shown by him, but he is being caught at a very fast rate by Robert de Sunic here. Robert de Sunic, that last lap, 2 seconds faster than Skinner. That is the pace difference, but Skinner may have made a mistake, to be fair. That is not an indication of Skinner being completely off pace every lap, and in fact, I think it is the sign of a mistake being made on the previous lap as they come on through, because now it is the case of 111.3 for Skinner versus Robert de Sunic on what was there a 111.9. So de Sunic finding a bit of traffic perhaps, but de Sunic, after a great start, a mistake saw him drop down the order in the LMP class, and he's had to recover his way up the order as he now makes his way through turns 4th and in towards 5 through the Essex. Adam Delmont P6, the Excite Racing driver, having a couple of loss and instants which have cost him dearly, and Alistair Kurt, the one who's lost the most time with the fact that he chases after Adam Delmont. They are effectively a sizable portion of the lap down on their peers, as we're hearing that Callum Reid Garton has jumped to the pits. We'll find out what's happened very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, and that Matt Edmunds as well has had an off on track. But right now, Alistair Kurt, the last of our LMP drivers, still running. We had the retirements of Ed Lack and Phil McDougall, the CXR Project Black drivers, both having technical issues, but it is the case that Alistair Kurt having what was that moment where he ran out of fuel down the back straight here on the lap he was due to come in. Meanwhile, in the GT3 class, we talk about the GT3 Pros. It is Matt Caruana who leads the GT3s, and the GT3 Pro driver is leading his class by 4.1 seconds ahead of second place man Billy Fletcher. It is the case the two of them were much closer together before the pit stops. Fletcher decided to go for the undercut. It didn't work out, and as a result, that has been the difference between the two of them. We're hearing that Alistair Kirk has got ahead of Adam Delmont, and Delmont has had an off on circuit. We'll just take a quick look back at what's happened to Adam Delmont. This was only moments ago as he rolled through the chicane here, coming through turn number 10, and the Excite Racing driver just a little bit wide, and the rear snapped loose, and from that, I think the whack to the wall there, and he's parked up and jumped to the pit, and I'm hearing that Adam Delmont has retired from, well no, he has not retired from the race, my apologies. I'm going to take that statement back immediately. It is the case that he is not retired, he's in the pits, and well, he is a lap down right now, and we will wait and see what happens in terms of them getting the car back out on circuit, but that's not what you have wanted to have happen. But meanwhile, as we go through the order, we continue to go through the order. It is the case that Matthew Hodges currently in P10 overall, P3 in the GT3 Pro class here. He does have there Gaz Williams find his way on through as he also laps Ben Payne in the GT3 AM class. And Matthew Hodges just having a very solid race, to be fair. Started off well, got swamped by a number of the LMP class cars, plus also some of his GT3 peers in quick succession, but he's been keeping his head down and putting in the drive. We have Gavin Gardner, meanwhile in P4 here in the GT3 Pros. He's putting a solid performance and finding his way on around, as Adam Delmont is still being worked on the pit lane from what I'm hearing. And Gavin Gardner here right now just putting in lap after lap, but he does have Carmelo Mettello currently in P5 in the GT3s, and that's in the GT3 Pro class, P12 overall, who is inching closer lap after lap. We're expecting a battle between the two of them to kick off in short order. William Foyle, P6 there, P13 overall. It is the case the McLaren MP4 12C driver just has not had the luck in this race, much like in the sprint race where he was right up there in P3 at one point, but the battling took a turn for the worst and he dropped down the order. And then Jean-Louis Deschamps in P14, P7 in the GT3 Pro class, and right now it is the case the Delta Motorsport privateer, not quite on the pace of his peers, but he is trying to build that pace up in quick order. And then we have in P15 our GT3 AM leader, that is Morten Eskustus, who after taking his pit stop much later than his peers came out with an advantage ahead of his teammate Alexander Patak from Hilliard Esport of almost 10 seconds. That gap now down to 9.3 seconds, but they continue on as we are hearing. That is the case, the battle between Gardner and also Martello kicking off here as they make their way into turn number one. We just cut back to this briefly. That is the battle for P4 in the GT3 Pro class, and well, that was not the full move. It did build up to quite a move, and we will take a look as we've got Ben Payne there spun at turn number 4. But we take a look back at how Martello passed Gardner for what was P4 in class. And it was all around through turn number 12 where Gardner there had to let the LMP machine through on the inside, and he wasn't able to take the natural line, and that gave Martello the overspeed he needed to go down the inside quite comfortably into turn number 1. But as we look back to those live pictures right now, it is the case that Gardner making that move, well, losing that position, he'll be trying to make a move in return, but he's got William Foyle inching ever closer. Continue our recall of the field then, with Morten Eskustus leading the GT3 AM class here in P14. It's Alexander Patak, his teammate, who is approximately 10 seconds back, in fact. And as they make their way through turns 6 and 7 right now, Patak putting in a solid performance, much like his teammate in the lead. And it is Matthew Addy, our race winner in the sprint race here, the NXTGEN Racing with Sam Case's UK driver, who is hunting down the top 2, and he is showing significant pace. He was that last lap a whole second faster than Alexander Patak and a whole half a second faster than Ustus. We'll wait and see. Nigel stopped P4, he was P3 and over the back, also on the back of what was Patak, but he had that one major moment coming through turn number 1, which saw him drop down to P5, but he's staying in there, the Crest Autosport with Apex Tracks, as he makes his way down into the woods of chicane. Stefan Albanese for the GT3 Pros here down in P18, that's P8 in the Pro class, as he makes his way through. Not his day at the races here at Road Atlanta, and he's not had the strongest of races, but to be fair, this track's seemingly a bit of a bogey track for the Audi R8s in general. And then we do have, you can see it here in P19, that's P5 in the GT3 AM class, and then a lap down almost on the majority of the field is Ben Payne here, but not to be forgotten about, and still putting in the laps and looking to get some points on the board. P6 in the GT3 AM class, P20 overall. The Crest Autosport Ferrari driver here soldiering on as we do see him there unlapping himself versus Morten Eskustus. But meanwhile, in terms of retirements or drivers in the pits, we do have Adam Delmont in the pits along with Matt Edmunds. Both drivers having repair work done to the car. And what happened to Matt Edmunds to warrant that he's in the pits right now and being worked on? This was only moments ago, and Edmunds, who was pushing, it was a mistake coming out of turn 7, just one wheel the rear left tyre onto the grass and a whack to the wall there. And what was at the time a pursuit of P4 in the GT3 AM class is now a pit stop, an unexpected pit stop, and he's down in P7 in the GT3 AM class being repaired, P22. Adam Delmont also in there with him, as we said earlier, and it is Callum Reid Garton who's in the pits. And what happened to Reid Garton? He's retired from the race, and we'll try and find out very shortly for you, ladies and gentlemen. But Callum Reid Garton has had a moment which he will not be happy about, and he's jumped to the pits. And here we go, what happened? Callum Reid Garton, of course, was right up there, and we just simply carried way too much speed through turn number 1. The GT3 Pro driver whacks the wall there, and that was his race all said and done for Altitude Esports as he jumped to the pits, and it did not work out in the end. And Callum Reid Garton retiring and adding to our retirement list of Maurizio Massi, Edward Lack, Tom Edmunds, Stuart P. Taylor and Phil McDougall. We have lost in this race so far the best part of what is 6 drivers, and we're hoping we're not going to be losing any more from our starting 28. That is the field, and with 20 minutes to go now, we are in that stage where it's all about the pace and whatnot. We're seeing here that Gareth Williams has actually found his way past Alex Everett, and Alex Everett has dropped a long way down the order. How did that pass occur here, you ask? Well, let's take a look. I think it's going to be the case that it's just simply occurred. It's been given. There's a lot of smoke. Oh, goodness me. And, well, Gareth Williams there having to take evasive action. And that was Alex Everett, who was sideways across the road, and very sharp cat-like reflexes there for Gaz Williams. What happened to Everett, meanwhile? Well, this is the replay of Alex Everett, and we ride on board, coming through the S's into turn 5, goes a bit wider apex, understeers, and just hits that exit curve that was claimed so many, and then the car just parked there, and you won't see it on camera, but it was the case that he pulled off the circuit as quickly as he can as the car got settled. And, well, Alex Everett, that explains why he is the best part of 9 seconds down on Gaz Williams, but both drivers there having a very near escape because they could have both been in contact, and that would have probably been a return to the pits for the pair of them. We do know that the LMP drivers are expecting one more pit stop because of the fuel, whereas the GT3 drivers only need the one pit stop by comparison. But we will wait and see how the rest of this plays on out, as meanwhile, whilst all this is going on, plenty more action still occurring, as we are hearing that, well, it is Matthew Addy who has found a way briefly past Alexander Patak, and then he's lost out. What happened between these two? In the rundown towards turn number 10 here. This is the battle for P2 in the GT3 AM class. Addy up the inside of Patak, but he was side by side. Oh, goodness me, and Patak with a little bit of a turn there, but to be fair, I mean, Addy probably thought as he was being turned, no. And then when Alexander Patak gave him another tap to point in the right direction, he was probably thinking, yes. That is a bit rare, though. I think the shoulds will definitely still take a look at that incident. I think Addy there got away with what could have been a nasty one, thanks to Patak simply pointing him back in the right direction. Perhaps Patak knew, you know, I've turned him a bit, so I'll turn him the other way and settle the difference. But the two of them have changed places now as we come back to the live pictures, and we will bring you the replay of how the return pass has occurred. And I think this time it may have been the case. Well, he was a long way back, Addy, here as they made the way down, and, well, Patak, to be fair, now that is sportsmanship, to be fair. Patak, you can't get any better than that. He lifted off in the run down into the turn 10 chicane, and he ran a little bit wide there, to be fair, unsettled the car. But I think Patak showing a lot of respect and saying, you know what, you did get the move done, and I turned you and caused you some damage, so you know I'm going to give the place up and we'll go racing from there. Great sportsmanship being shown by the Dane, and I think Addy will appreciate that. Of course, he gains the position, he'll appreciate the point, but I think indeed the stewards as well will be very, very appreciative of seeing that happen on circuit. And that's what we've, of course, Courage and NXTGEN Racing is: hard, fast but fair racing and great sportsmanship. And now Addy goes off into the pursuit of Oosterhuis, who is 10.5 seconds, in fact 11 seconds up the road from Addy, and he's only got 17 minutes plus the final lap. In terms of relative pace, Addy is lapping about half a second a lap faster than the GT3 AM leader. And I think with that in mind, if we do a bit of quick maths here, the fact that we have got 17 minutes remaining and the average lap time for our GT3 drives about 1 minute 20, I think Addy is going to have to strip a bit more time if he wants to be there right at the end. I mean, he's going to need to trim off about 7 to 8 tenths of a second, given the time remaining per lap, and that may put him in contention right at the end of this race. But right now, as we see they come across the timeline, this time around, it is a 19.4 for Oosterhuis. It's a 19.4 for Addy as well. I do think that Addy needs to find that lap time and find it fast, because he's running out of time. But to be fair, he'll take a P2, he'll take a win and a P2 for sure, but he would love to make it a double win for the simple reason that would be huge points on the board. Meanwhile, Nigel Stock here giving pursuit of Stefan Albanese as they make their way into turn 3 and through 4 and into the S's. Two of them in opposite classes, the GT3s, with Nigel Stock in the AM class, Albanese in the Pro class, as they roll them down through the S's. You can see there the LMP of Alistair Kirk sandwiched between the two of them. He'll make his way past in the run up towards turn 6, there's no doubt about that. But Nigel Stock here just soldiering on for what is, I would say, if he doesn't make any major errors, a guaranteed P4 in the GT3 AM class as he makes his way through. He'll be expecting that if it weren't for the mistake, it would have been a podium, but still I think he'll take what he can get as he makes his way down the back straight and up towards the chicane once more. But as he comes on down, meanwhile, I can tell you that in the chicane right now, in that braking zone, Robert Asunik here, who's literally had a race that's seen him at the front of the LMP field and dropped to the back of the LMP field. Now he's making his way through the LMP midfield. He's chasing after Dan Skinner as they make their way through the right-hander at turn at number 12. And as they come charging on through here, well, he was getting a bit closer, but I think he outbroke himself into the chicane, and that gap has opened up to 1.1 seconds as he makes his way up the hill, over the crest, and now into turns 3, 4, 5 as he rolls them down through the S's. As he comes charging on down here, it is the case that we do check in with race control. We are not seeing anything in race control at the moment, but as our drivers have made their way on through, it is one of those situations whereby Dasunik closing once again to the back of Skinner here. He does have the pace, Dasunik, to be fair, on a comparative lap time when he doesn't make a mistake, but we are just waiting to see where he can put that move together as they make their way down the back straight, and this should be the opportunity that he needs to inch very close. And if he can he try and force the move here? As you can see that Skinner having to try and get past some GT3 traffic. He'll do so before the braking zone. I think he'll feel safe there. This is the closest battle on circuit, so we will stay with it whilst it occurs. And as they make their way through the chicane, you can see Dasunik this time getting a much better run through the chicane. It was a mistake on the previous lap. He went in too deep, knocked up the brakes, but this time he's right there as they come on through to go on to another lap. What for them is now lap number 39, and we ride on board the gearbox here of iRacing's Dan Skinner, who's trying to bring home a P4, or at least it's going to be, we presume, a guaranteed P5 here today, guaranteed top 5. Although I say that, Alistair Kirk is only 7 seconds behind, and right now Kirk's pace is quite similar to Robert Dasunik. Alistair Kirk lapping half a second slower than Dasunik, but to be fair, Dasunik now feel the pain of having to battle and being tucked into the dirty air of Dan Skinner's LMP as they make their way up towards turn number 6. Now you can see there once again navigating traffic, but for Skinner that's worked out a bit better where he's gone past Jean-Louis Deschamps in the GT3 Porsche, because he's been able to get back on the racing line and give himself the widest possible entry into the apex of turn 6, whereas Dasunik there having that moment. And well, we do have to cut away from this briefly, ladies and gentlemen, because Billy Fletcher right now going very slowly, and I believe that is coming out of turn number 3 and down through, well, that's turn 2 into 4. What's happened to Billy Fletcher? This was only moments ago as he made his way into turn 1, so he did have there Chris Daines coming through, and he took a bit too much apex curve there, and Fletcher carrying the speed through just unsettled the rear on corner exit of 1, but fortunately for him, Jochen Seeger put on the brakes to slow the car down and avoid the contact, but Billy Fletcher, that's when we cut to the camera and saw him building up the speed once again. So Fletcher with a rare mistake there, and he has dropped down. Well, he hasn't dropped a position at all, he's simply dropped time to Matt Caruana, and now he's put the race leader in the GT3 Pro class 18 seconds away from him. I think for Matt Caruana, in his mind, that will simply be a case now, I've got this in the bag, and Matt Caruana will not have to worry as much. He can back off at this point, but of course, is he one of those drivers who, much like Ayrton Senna, for example, if they back off, they start to make mistakes, they're not running at 100%. Some drivers are like that, some drivers can ease off quite easily, others need to be full attack all the way through. As they make their way through to 4 here, and Matt Caruana in a very comfortable place right now. As into the pits most recently was Robert Dasunik in the LMP class. He's come back out in P6. He's made his final stop by soon to take on the fuel to go to the end of the race, and I suspect we'll be seeing more pit stops from our LMP drivers soon. That may shake up the order. But right now we're also hearing that Ben Payne has had a moment on circuit. He's had a bit of a spin. Let's take a look at what happened to the Crest Auto Sport Ferrari driver. This as he made his way down through the S's here, a little bit wide of the first apex as he came into 5. The rear just simply coming around a bit too soon for the car, and Ben Payne there sideways, but he's been able to get the car back up to speed and safely out the way and back up to the racing. As we look back to live pictures right now, it hasn't been Ben Payne's day to be fair, but he's staying out there. He's not giving in, he's not retiring the car, they're keeping the car out there, and it will be good points for the Englishman as he makes his way down through turn at number 12 here. And that's what it's all about sometimes. It's about just simply keeping your head down and getting the car to the very end. Even if you're having the worst possible day, if you can bring it home, you'll get some more important points, and they could make the difference later on in the championship. As he makes his way up over the hill through turn number 2, a little bit of an unsettle there into the apex of 2. We can see it just ahead there. That's Chris Daines trying to find his way past Matthew Addy. And to be fair, Daines there making it look very easy indeed. I think Matthew Addy was very compliant down through the S's there, to be fair. And well, with that compliance, I do wonder whether Addy is thinking about the fact that Ustus is just too far away from him. The gap between the two of them now is the best part of what is 8.5 seconds, as you can see on the timing tower on the left-hand side of your screen. And I believe that with that in mind, it will mean that Ustus is pretty much guaranteed to win here unless he makes a major error. Now, of course, Addy will be happy with that P2, as we said earlier, but I wonder if a little part of him is hoping that right now that Ustos ends up with the LMP cars coming through at the worst possible place, as meanwhile we can tell you that with all this going on, Carmelo Martello has just found a way past Matthew Hodges, and these two were not close together a brief while ago. But Hodges, well, he seems to have fallen in behind, and Martello has come up very quickly indeed. We're just looking at sector times right now, and, well, I think Hodges has made a mistake in the opening, so in Sector 2 in particular, because that gap has come down very rapidly, and we will try and find out very shortly for you what exactly has happened. You can see Martello in a very comfortable space here, but now on this back straight, because this is where the Ferrari does have the top speed, although its 6th gear is quite a long gear by comparison, but in that slipstream, that gear will work wonders. Alistair Kirk, meanwhile, making his way through in the LMP machine there, capitalised on the fact they're not quite in the braking zone as he locks up there on the front left brake, and we'll get a bit of dust smoke, brake dust smoke to Martello. That won't put Martello off too much. Let's take a look back at how that pass occurred. As they made their way down, and well, there it is, ladies and gentlemen. We saw it off camera slightly, but Matthew Hodges went wide at turn number 3, and that explains because the two of them were not close together on our timing screens, and then suddenly there they were, and Martello capitalising on an error from Matthew Hodges, and that means Martello is now running in the last of the podium positions in the GT3 Pro class. That is P9 for the Italian as he makes his way down, and looking good right now as we are hearing it is a retirement for Adam Delmont. We have had a retirement for the Excite Racing driver in the LMP class, which means we have now had what is our 7th retirement. Matt Edmunds still in the pit lane. I do not think they're able to get the car out, or they're trying their best to get the car out there with 8 minutes to go plus the final lap. We will wait and see as they make their way round right now. We see Matthew Hodges here on the offensive. He's going to try and come back at Martello, but has he got enough pace in the tank to do so? Or will it be the case that Hodges has to settle for what will be P4 in the end after what was looking to be a near certain podium? And it's just one little mistake that has made all the difference. And, well, I think he'll be kicking himself right now. He's not going to be giving in, and he is actually closing up to Martello a little bit. That last lap, to be fair, it was the case that Hodges was down significantly because of the error, but this time as they come around and through to the end of the lap, let's take a look at those relative lap times. And as they come on through here for Carmelo Martello, the lap is what we can see is a 118.0. Meanwhile, Hodges by comparison a 117.9. So Hodges matching Martello, and I think if he can stay within this space, stay within the toe as they make their way through turns 6 and 7 onto that back straight, Hodges could be with Martello right at the end of this race and looking to make the return move here. It's going to be very close. Both drivers will be on edge. Of course, the tyres now will be starting to feel the wear, the legs as well, the arms, and as they make their way up through turn at number 5 and head down towards 6, it is the case the CXR Project Black driver will need to be inventive, find a way. As Matt Edmunds leaves the pit, he will be back out on the circuit, which is great to hear, and that will mean he'll be classified for the results, as I understand it. He is a lap down, I believe, on the rest of the GT3 class that's still running, but Matt Edmunds has returned to the circuit as I look out my commentary box window. But Hodges continuing that pursuit of Martello. He just does not seem to have the speed for the opening 5 corners. It's turn 6 onwards where Hodges finds that pace, but Martello's able to open up enough of a gap. That slipstream down the back straight is not compromising his ability to hold on to that P3. As they make their way through, 6.5 minutes to go here, and as they come charging on through at 11 and 12, we do look to elsewhere, and we see you can see it here. Meanwhile, down in P19, P5 in the GT3 AM class, and as he rolls through at turn number 3 and 4, goes a bit wide there and takes a cone with him for good measure. And in this case, perhaps he just wanted to collect one as a souvenir, but as he comes down in the flow up towards turn number 5 here, it is one of those cases where the German driver, to be fair, having that brilliant performance in the sprint, the feature race has not quite worked out as well as he may have wanted it to, but still it is going to be a P5 assuming things finish as they currently are, and that is going to be some huge points on the board. And to be fair, we know he may not be one of the fastest drivers, but he's definitely a very consistent driver, and he does enjoy that BMW M4 as he makes his way out of turn number 7 and down the back straight here. His next target, of course, Nigel Stock, with 15.5 seconds up the road. And I think, speaking of Nigel Stock, as we do look at Nigel Stock making his way over the crest of 11 and down into 12, looking good as we hear that Stefan Albanese, meanwhile, I think it's a connectivity issue, unless it is a sudden retirement for Albanese. He's listed as out on our screen, and no, he has reconnected. It is the case it was just a connectivity issue, and Albanese is still running P17 just ahead of Nigel Stock. I was going to say, if that's happening right at the end of this race, that's the last thing you want. As you can see there, it is the case that we do see a flash of the light from just in front. Alistair Kirk is trying to find his way on through, but Nigel Stock right now will find his way past Ben Payne and is continuing to hunt after Albanese as they make their way around the circuit. But meanwhile, as if to answer the question, will we see a battle between Martello and Hodges? Martello puts in his personal best of the race of 1:17.5 versus Hodges at 1:17.9. It is the case that Martello has opened that gap up to 2.5 seconds. I think he has put Hodges out of touch of that battle for P3. We will wait and see. Of course, it just takes one slight error and we could see Martello drop it, much like we saw Hodges almost drop it through turn number 3, and that's what led to the two of them changing places. But right now, if things finish as they are, you can imagine Martello will be very happy with that podium. As into the pit comes Dan Skinner here. So it is the case our LMP2 drivers, they are trying to go to the end without that extra pit stop, but Skinner has had to come in for Excite Racing to take this pit stop. And as he rolls on in here, well, where's Robert Dasunik, I hear you ask? Well, Dasunik's making his way down the back straight. He's almost at the chicane already. Could we see a return to P5 for Robert Dasunik within the class and overall as he makes his way through the chicane in the LMP2 Dallara P217? And as he rolls on out of turn number 11 and down into 12, well, Skinner's leaving his pit box right now, as you can see. But Skinner making his way out of the pit lane here. Skinner's done enough. I think Dasunik is going to have to find a way past the circuit. And that gap is going to be in the region of about 4 seconds when they balance it out at the crest of 2 and into 3, and the gap in fact is 3.5 seconds. And now Dasunik has got to push like mad because he's not got long. He's got 3.5 minutes plus the final lap, and well, Skinner now 3 seconds up the road. Dasunik is flying, to be fair, and Skinner needs to get those tyres back up to temperature. They'll have lost a little bit of tyre temperature, not too much because it's a relatively short pit stop for his second stop, but Dasunik and Skinner taking second stops. Meanwhile, the rest of our LMP drivers deciding to stay out there after a single stop. Will they get to the end? We will wait and find out. It is looking as though right now all of our drivers pressing on, as meanwhile we do see Nigel Stock here chasing after what is Alexander Takas. We're hearing that Stefan Albanese has retired from this race due to a technical issue. With only 5 minutes to go, Albanese, who was looking good for some major points, has now retired, and that is very unfortunate for Albanese. Another retirement, and Road Atlanta has been a roller coaster ride, not just in terms of the layout of the circuit, but also in terms of the way it's favoured our drivers. As we ride on board here with Nigel Stock with that crumpled front end on the Mercedes, which has not held him back, and right in front of him there is Alexander Batak, who is in P3 in the GT3 AM class. As Stock here is hunting down that podium that he lost out the opportunity to hunt earlier on, and with a mistake which saw him crumple the front end. As they make the way here down the back straight, you can see Stock letting Chris Daines through and immediately getting onto that racing line. Batak not as able to get onto that racing line, and Stock here pushing on as they make over him. Batak makes a mistake, and Stock looks out the inside here as it's now a trade race down the back straight. It's Mercedes versus Mercedes. And Stock's going to have the speed here as they make the way down. He'll just have a little bit more as they make the way through the kink of 8 into the kink of 9 they come. But of course now Batak will have to go as deep as he dares on the brakes. As Albanese actually was in the pits, my apologies. But as they make the way down to the brake, it's Batak goes all in on the brakes. He decides, you know what, I haven't got long left, I might as well chuck everything, including the kitchen sink at this. And as they make the way out of turn number 11 and down into 12, we can see there, that's why the LMP's coming through. That's Skinner coming through. And now Stock is going to try and come back here on what for them will be, well, it's close to their final lap. And in fact, there's going to be one more lap after this one. It's not over yet. The battle is staying there. And this is the battle for P3 in the GT3 AM class between the two Mercedes drivers. It's Hillerud's Motorsports, Alexander Batak in the front, and it's Nigel Stock from Crystal Motorsport of Apex Tracks behind. And right now, even one of them deserves that podium. They both fought hard. They both had moments. And you can see behind them Robert Dasunik in the LMP who will be wanting them to let him through. And well, he's going to come through around the outside here, and you can see Nigel Stock all over the back as they make their way down to turn number 6. It's Batak on the inside. He defends hard, but he defends really deep into the corner, and as a result, as they make the way out, Stock taps the rear of Batak, and he looks up the inside here. He goes to it very late, and he loses it. He takes too much apex curve, and Nigel Stock at the corner, at one of the corners where he lost it earlier, makes a similar mistake, and that for Nigel Stock is all she wrote for the battle for P3 as they make the way down the back straight now. He will hold on to B4, but it is the case that it's not worked out for Stock, as meanwhile William Foll here is hunting down Jean-Louis Deschamps with not too long to go as they make their way down through the S's here. The race leader has gone on to the final lap, and William Foll will be looking to try and steal away this position. He's got 2 more laps to go, including this one, as they make the way up to 6. As they make their way into the braking zone here, I do think that Deschamps is struggling with the tyres there as they come out of the corner, and as they roll them through, the hour is up. The checker flag will be out. The next time Chris Daines comes around to complete the race, he's currently up at turn number 6, but we're focusing on here the battle for what is P12. That is P6 in the GT3 Pro class, and William Foles looking for the move here. He's going to try and go round the outside to inside in the run down towards the chicane. He does go for it, and he gets it done then. Deschamps just does not have any momentum, and in fact I think yielding the position there as he makes his way on through. And I wonder if Deschamps has run out of fuel, because he's looking very slow. He has run out of fuel, I think. But speaking of a driver who's not run out of fuel, as he makes his way through the chicane, we had to come through the LMP2 class into the lead, but he's going to make it 2 out of 2 again. I think this is to continue as he makes his way through the final corner. Your winner is Chris Daines here in race number 2 in the feature at Road Atlanta, and he wins by 20.8 seconds over Gaz Williams in P2. Meanwhile, in the GT3 Pro class, it is Matt Caruana who takes the win. A deserved win for Matt Caruana, a brilliant drive in the Audi R8. And then in the GT3 AM class, he's just crossed the line, is Morten S. Usus for Hilliard Esport, who has put in an absolutely fantastic performance. You see there Matthew Addy, who comes home P2 in the GT3 AM class, and he'll be pleased with that. And Alexander Batak comes home P3 in the GT3 AM. Meanwhile, I can tell you in the GT3 Pro class, it is Billy Fletcher in the end who comes home P2 behind Matt Caruana, and Carmelo Martello, who in the end, as he crosses the line, they're flashing lights. The DRS Esport LMS1 team, they will be absolutely ecstatic with that performance. A fantastic drive from the Italian, and well, what a race. And to finish off our LMP2 podium, it is Gaz Williams who comes home P2 and Alex Everett P3 in the end. But my goodness, what a race up and down the field. It had drama, it's had retirements, it's had battles, it's had fuel saving, it's had overtakes in the pits, it's had everything. But as you can see here on the left hand side of your screen, there are the race results subject to any stewards' inquiries, where we can see that Chris Daines in with that absolutely phenomenal win ahead of Gaz Williams and Alex Everett. Alistair Kirk and Dan Skinner completing the top 5 for the LMP2 drivers. Meanwhile, in the GT3 Pros, it is the case that Matt Caruana taking the win ahead of Billy Fletcher, and Martello completing the podium, with Matthew Hodges and Gavin Gardner completing the top 5. And then meanwhile, it is the case that in the GT3 AMS, it was the story of Morten S. Oosterhuis taking the win ahead of Matthew Addy and Alexander Batak. As we can see there, the Hilliard Esport drivers in formation P1 and P3. They will be very pleased to have 2 drivers on the podium. With the absence of Gamborg Rasmussen tonight, they've made up for the absence of their 3rd driver, and they will be most pleased with that. Nigel Stock in the MP4, he had a chance at P3, but he couldn't quite make it work out in the end, but he stayed home in P4. And then it is the case that you can see it brought up the P5 position, completing our top 5 there in the GT3 AM class. Fantastic race, and congratulations to all our drivers who were able to make the checkered flag. And well, ladies and gentlemen, that means it is time for us to get ready for our post-race interviews. We will be away for a little while. We'll be back in approximately 5 minutes time, or as soon as we possibly can, for the post-race interviews. But don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we're ready to conduct our post-round interviews, and we've only been able to secure the time of 2 of our competitors in the Apex Racing Academy lobby tonight, but nonetheless, we will be bringing in our 2 drivers very shortly, and we'll be kicking off with Chris Daines, and of course Chris Daines, our winner in both races in the LMP PRO class by a sizable margin, and it'll be interesting to hear from the winner himself. Let's bring him in to the interview room now. Welcome, Chris, and an absolutely phenomenal pair of performances tonight. I mean, you couldn't ask for more, could you? It was the perfect evening, surely, to follow up what was at Watkins Glen a perfect evening?
Yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, I knew it would be a bit tougher this race because there was 4 or 5 drivers that were within a tenth of me, like all practice sessions we've been doing. So I knew it'd be really tough. So it was just trying to get that pole position and try and lead the way, so to say. And through the first sector and second sector is obviously where it's really important to stay in front. So I knew if I kept it there and pulled a bit of a gap on the straight, then I knew I'd be okay for attacks on the first lap.
Oh, indeed. And with that, we take it all the way back to qualifying. She just seemed to have this edge throughout the whole evening. Qualifying lap, out qualifying your peers by 3/10 of a second in the end. Did you feel as though it was the perfect qualifying lap, or was there more time out there?
No, I don't. To be honest, I don't know how I done that lap. It was just I nailed every apex and hit every single braking zone perfectly. I don't think I'd have got more out of the car, especially in those temperatures. It was just there was no chance. And when I saw Gaz had put pole position on there, I knew that was my last chance. And once you've, like I said, once you're first through that first sector, once you've hit those first sector braking markers and hit those apexes perfectly, you know you can hook the rest of the lap up pretty well. So yeah, that was a pretty perfect lap. I don't think there was any more left on the table.
Oh, indeed. So, with there nothing left on the table in qualifying going into the race, obviously, as you were saying a moment ago, having that good start and needing to drop the field in the sprint race, we did see at the start it was very crowded going through the opening couple of corners, but you looked as though you had it quite in control. What was your plan for the sprint in particular? Was it sort of bunch everybody up, get them fighting, and then just charge off into the distance?
It was no, it was trying to get the gap as quick as possible because the slipstream in the LMP2s is quite a lot, and if you're 1.1 seconds behind, you've still got a slipstream on the car ahead. So bunching everybody up would have been a very dangerous way to go about it. So I thought I really had to nail the first lap. And on cold tyres, it's very difficult. So you've just got to move the brake bias forward a bit just to try and make sure the rear doesn't step out, things like that. So I just done that and went through the motions, and then within the first lap, I think Gaz and I can't remember. I think it was Everett had a bit of a. I don't know whether they overtook each other coming towards the last sort of corner, which gave me a lovely gap, 3 second gap. So I just then kept it like that and pulled away slightly. So between them two battling, it was nice for them to do that for me. So
Oh, most definitely, because at the end of the first lap, as you say, the battling between the pair of them, between Everett and Williams, led to you being given quite a nice gap as we went on to subsequent laps. And it just seemed as though from that point, the lap times just kept coming in, and your gap just expanded as they continued to battle. And in translating that into the feature race, of course, with Road Atlanta being so tight, particularly in the first 2 sectors, what was your thought process going into the feature, given that you'd very rapidly have to find your way through the MP class before coming up behind the GT3s?
yeah, so I said to my teammate who's in the GT3 class, I said I'm literally just going to sit behind him, look after my tyres, because the thing is with Road Atlanta, it's very aggressive on the tyres. You've got a lot of undulations, your curbs are really aggressive, and you have to use the curbs. So I knew the tyres were coming to play at the end of the stint because you don't want to be putting that amount because you almost have to fill up a full tank of fuel and you don't want wrecked tyres. So I thought I'd just sit behind him, save a bit of fuel, and the guys ahead of me were locking up into corners, and it was just playing into my hands really. And then there was an opening, and I took it, and then slowly started picking them off one by one. So yeah, it was just a sit back and relax and wait for mistakes ahead of me type thing, really.
And in that sort of sit back, relax, and wait, were you thinking about the fuel situation? Because we did see Alistair Kirk, for example, run out of fuel down the back straight on the lap he was due to pit in. We also saw a couple of the LMP drivers, such as Robert Dasunik, have to also come into the pits right at the end of the race to put a small amount of fuel in the tank. Was it sort of just relax the engine a little bit, keep some fuel in the car, and that way make the race a bit easier later?
Yeah, I mean, I knew that you had to put a full tank of fuel in, and I thought, well, if I, what I was doing on the first 10 minutes or so, no, not 10 minutes, probably about 5 minutes. So I was dumping the clutch while I was at the back and just coasting into the final few corners, which gave me an extra 2 litres in the tank. So I knew I only needed about 72 odd litres in the tank. So I knew I'd be okay on fuel. So again, if you don't save fuel, you're going to struggle, especially here with a full tank of fuel. You need that fuel saving method going into it, whether it's lift and coast or whether it's just literally dumping the clutch. So that's what I was doing again behind them as well.
I see, and definitely that method giving you the ability to carry a bit more fuel deeper into the race and therefore not have to worry about fuel as much as we went into that second stint. And I do have to ask, given the pace you've demonstrated over the opening 2 rounds, what seems to be the trick? You just seem to have so much pace. Of course, we've got plenty of rounds to go. It's not over yet, but you seem to be in a class of your own. Is it the Verano Motorsport livery? Is that what's giving you the extra 10%?
Yeah, it's the Mark Sykes livery that was made for us, mate. That's what it is. It's slipstream. No, I've just. This is the only car I really drive on iRacing. I've driven it for a while. It's the only thing I really enjoy driving. So I don't chop and change between cars. I've learnt this car, and this is the only one I really love driving. I'm not a GT3 driver. I'm pretty slow in the GT3, so I don't tend to go anywhere near that. So this is, to be honest, I just practice a lot, mostly every day in the car. So it just comes down to practice, really.
Well, indeed. Well, so far, practice seems to have made perfect in the opening 2 rounds. And how are you feeling for round number 3 in a week's time as we head to the Motorsport Park in Canada?
Well, I was saying this to my teammate. I can't actually remember the track. I don't think I've been on it for a couple of years. So again, I'm definitely going to have to put some laps in there because I don't even know which way round it goes at the moment.
Well, it'll definitely be interesting to see you take to the Canadian circuit in a week's time. But until then, congratulations on what was another phenomenal evening, back-to-back wins at Road Atlanta. And we look forward to seeing you out on the circuit in a week's time. Thank you for joining us for an interview, Chris.
Thanks a lot. Cheers, mate.
All the best. So hearing that from Chris Daines, who very happy with his performance tonight, and very interesting to hear from him the 2 differences in styles of race. In the sprint race, where he was focused more on making that very early break, getting away from the chasing pack on that opening lap to mitigate that slipstream effect down the back straight. And then conversely, when he had to come through the LMP field in the feature race, it was about biding his time and waiting for the opportunities to arise and using that time in order to do some fuel saving, enable him to go a bit deeper into the race on the fuel tank and not have to worry about as much refueling in the pits during that pit stop. And what I do think that right now, given the practice that Daines is putting in, there's definitely a clear sign as to why he has been on major form, and we'll have to wait and see whether he's able to carry it through at Canada in a week's time. But we come from Chris Daines to Gareth Williams, our second driver to be interviewed tonight, and I should tell you, ladies and gentlemen, we will have a third interview as well, and we'll be updating the details of that very shortly. But let's bring Gareth Williams into our interview room and hear from the LMP driver who had quite mixed fortunes tonight, but 2 races on the podium. So we're just bringing Gaz Williams into the interview room now. Welcome, Gaz, to your interview for this evening after the races at Road Atlanta. 2 podiums today, a P3 in the sprint and a P2 in the feature. How do you feel your night's been at the American circuit?
All right. Not too bad, I guess. Hectic.
When you say hectic, just dialing things back, we did see all the way through the proceedings tonight, great battling between yourself and Alex Everett in particular in the sprint and the feature, and it did look as though quite a rivalry has kicked off between the 2 of you. How did you enjoy that race, and particularly in the sprint, where the 2 of you seemed inseparable at points?
Yeah, slightly messed that start up a bit at the chicane. That's kind of what probably kicked it off. Snatched inside a bit coming down to that final chicane, and yeah, I think it was Alex and Alistair through. And then yeah, we seem to be just glued together for the rest of the race, really. That's good battling though, really. You want a bit of battling, don't you? You don't want to just be sitting on your own all race.
Oh, indeed. It's always good to see battling. Well, definitely from the perspective of the broadcast, the people tuning in, I think they all love the battling between the 2 of you. But at the same time, it did mean that Chris Daines was able to gradually saunter off into the distance after the opening lap.
Yeah. Once he got a bit of a gap, he was just gone. But the traffic, it kind of makes or breaks your race, really, especially for that first sector. You can lose a lot of time if you just can't pass them. So, but yeah, it's one of them, isn't it? That's the game, isn't it?
Oh, indeed. But speaking of traffic and whatnot, the feature race a bit kinder to you in a way. Whilst Chris Daines was able to get through the field at quite a rapid rate and in the end did the disappearing act once again, it seemed as though all the traffic fell quite nicely for yourself as you were making your way up through the reverse grid, and it worked out, and in the end, P2.
Yeah, mostly it was all right. There was a couple where I think Alex had that little moment where he spun it, and then I got past him, and then there was a couple of laps where I caught him in awkward spots, and he gained a couple of seconds. I think it was. But then I think it evened out a bit towards the end because it looked like maybe he got stuck behind a few of them. So yeah, it was back and forth really, but yeah, it was all right. To be fair, 2 seconds, can't complain that really.
Oh, most definitely. And of course, with the racing today and next week, we go to a bit of a different circuit. We head to the Motorsport Park in Canada. How are you feeling for the Canadian circuit?
Do you know what? I hadn't even heard of it until it was put on the calendar. So yeah, I haven't tried any laps around it yet. So but it looks pretty quick. Looks quite fun. So I think quality will be nice to drive, but in the race, it's could be a bit different, especially when trying to lap cars. It's so high speed by the look of it.
Oh, goodness me. Well, we look forward to seeing how you get on in a week's time. But until then, congratulations on your double podiums today. And thank you for joining us in the interview room.
Thanks, Paul, mate.
All the best. So hearing there from Gaz Williams, who quite happy with his performances, and he was talking there in particular about the battles he had with Alex Everett in both races, particularly in the sprint, the great side-by-side battling, and it was due to a slight mistake, as Williams was saying, coming down through the final couple, coming through the chicane and enveloping into turns 11 and 12. We just didn't quite carry the pace through those corners, and that's what led to everything kicking off. And in return, of course, whilst it was great battling, and you could hear Williams there enjoyed the battling, he always does enjoy a good battle, and we saw that between him and William Ford, of course, in Season 2 of the GT3 Championship. The return was that the eventual race winner, Chris Daines, by the end of that opening lap, had already opened up a 1.2 second gap, which meant that slipstream effect the next time they came down the back straight was practically gone, unless they'd been able to bring that gap back into within a second. So as a result, it was sort of, by that point, it was the battle for P2, which Williams then bringing home the P3 in the sprint, feature P2. But in the feature, as he was saying there about the fact the battles, but also the traffic coming at reasonable times, it evened out over the course of the race, but he was able to pick up the traffic and get the result of P2. And much like with Chris Daines saying about the fact that the relative, not inexperience of the circuit, but the relative unknown of the Canadian Motorsport Park circuit in a week's time, that could really shake up the field with both drivers there. Our two major drivers who we've spoken to so far in the LMP PRO class, both feeling as though they need to get their head down and study the circuit, and also a high-speed circuit, and that may just turn a tail, much like we saw at Watkins Glens, just how high the average speed was there. But with that, we'll now be bringing in our third and final interviewee for tonight, and that is Alistair Kirk. We'll be bringing him into the interview room very shortly, and well, let's hear from the driver who's had a bit of a difficult night in the races from the LMP PRO class. So good evening to you, Alistair, and well, a difficult night on the cards for yourself. A sprint race P5, a feature P4, and some fuel missing in the car in the feature as well. How's your race evening been from your perspective?
Pretty crap, to be honest, mate. I think I had the speed, to be honest. I mean, Chris is fast at any track, mate. I remember him saying he races his car a lot, so he knows the ins and outs of it, I guess, where I swap from this to GTs and back, so it's kind of, I guess it's a bit of a disadvantage, but that's whatever that is. Yeah, in a sprint race, I had a good start, I think. I can't really remember too much about the sprint race, to be honest. But yeah, I had a good start. And was battling with well, all the boys really. Robert, Alex, Gaz, Chris was gone. And I think Gaz made a mistake, and then me and Alex got through, and then I overtook Alex coming down into the bus stop, and then kind of took off a couple of seconds there. And then I made another mistake, which let Alex back past with like a couple of laps to go, and then the last lap I was pushing really hard to try and close the gap to see if I could slipstream past him on the back straight, and I think it was turn 6 and turn 7. There's like a curb on the left, and I went over the curb and I touched the grass, and it shot me kind of towards the wall, which isn't good. I ended up taking 5th, and then the feature race was just crazy. It was nuts. Yeah, I had crashes, I had the fuel mishap, but yeah, it is what it is. It was still fun, so.
Indeed, and whilst there was a lot of negative signs, so a lot of the positives as well, and particularly in the battles we saw in the opening portion of the feature race between yourself, Robert Dasunik, and also I believe it was Alex Everett, where the three of you were nose to tail for the best part of 15 minutes. I mean, in that battle where these LMP cars are so dependent on their downforce, but also the fact they can pick up so much toe down that back straight, what was it like being in such close proximity? Because you were getting a double toe down that straight at points.
Yeah, I think it was Gaz actually. Gaz was in front of me, and then Alex was in front of Gaz.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, and I mean, I love racing with Gaz. He's so clean, and we kind of know from last season what we like, and we're pretty clean towards each other. I mean, what I was trying to do really was trying to kind of every time I sort of like quote unquote send it. I was just trying to force him into a mistake, see if he'd run wide, or just cook it a little bit into the corner, and I'd just be able to overtake him. But I wasn't doing anything too stupid. And yeah, the fuel mishap. So we were coming to the bus stop, and there was a gaggle of, I think, 3, 4, 5 GTs, and I was so focused on the battle between Alex and Gaz and myself that I forgot to look at my fuel gauge. And I saw that there was, obviously, it's about 2.4 litres a lap, and I had 1.4 coming across the line. I was like, oh no.
Oh, goodness.
I don't know how, I managed to save a lot and get back to the pits, but by then my race was ruined, so.
Well, to be fair, at the same time, you kept your head in it and kept pushing on and brought a P4 home in the end, albeit there were some retirements in your class. But just in that situation where you pretty much got to go for broke and give it everything and picking up P4, what sort of kept you motivated at a point to say, I'm going to go back out there and just get some points?
I think just knowing that I'm quicker than some of the guys, really. I feel like I'm quite consistent as well, and I feel like I'm quite good through the traffic, to be honest. Can get a bit sendy at times, and I apologise to the guys that I may have sent it on tonight and the first round as well. But yeah, I just saw the gap. I saw the gap to Robert in front, and it was like, I think it was 8 or 9 seconds when I came out the pits, and it just kept coming down, and then he pit, I think he did, which put me into 5th, and then I seen that I was consistently quicker than Dan there, and then I don't know what happened to him actually. Did he pit again?
Yes, Dan Skinner pitted before Dasunik did.
Yeah, right, okay, yeah. Yeah, so I seen that. I seen I was quicker, and I just tried to push the gap as much as I could, and ended up with P4. Not too bad. I'm pretty happy with that considering where I was. So yeah, just move on to round 3 really.
Indeed, and speaking of round 3, we head to Canada for the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. How are you feeling for the Canadian circuit?
Yeah, good. I spun some laps there the other day actually. I didn't think I had it, but I was talking to a couple of my teammates and stuff, and I realised I did. So I run some laps there, and it's very. I mean the first sector, it's very up and down. It's very undulating, and there's a lot of elevation change. It's I think turn 2, the fast left-hander going down the hill, is very deceptive. It's actually a lot slower. You have to take it a lot slower into there than you think. Which obviously I crashed quite a few times to learning the track. But yeah, it should be good for racing. It's a very quick track like Road Atlanta. So yeah, let's see. It's going to be fun.
Indeed, and we look forward to seeing you take to the circuit in a week's time. But until then, congratulations on your results today, albeit they weren't necessarily the results you were looking for, but still some good points on the board. And thank you for joining us in the interview room.
Cheers, mate. I just want to give a quick shout out to Simrings UK, Blue Motion Racing, and Reality Racing. Cheers, guys.
I'm sure they'll appreciate that, and we wish you all the best this evening.
Cheers, mate. Ta.
Take care. So hearing that from Alistair Kirk, very, very mixed feelings, to be honest, in the fact that whilst he did have the pace to perform as well over the course of tonight, it was at the same time an evening whereby it just did not go his way. And again, in the sprint and in the feature, there were the moments which just saw him drop out the hunt for potential podium positions. But the thing with Kirk is, as you can hear there, the consistency, he's got the pace, and he just needs an evening whereby there's no incidents or any moments like that. And I think that with time, those will be ironed out, and we could see him right up there once again. And indeed, we saw in the GT3 Championship Season 2 just how fast Alistair Kirk was behind the wheel of the TGC Racing Lamborghini Huracan, particularly in the second half of the season, the Red Bull Ring, where he absolutely flew out of the gates very quickly. And I'm sure Kirk will come on, and well, we'll wait and see how he gets on in round number 3 in a week's time. I do think we could see some surprises from him there. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that brings our post-round interviews to a conclusion. Only 3 drivers available for interview tonight, all of them LMP PRO drivers with a different perspective. And, well, thank you very much for watching. And if you do want to know more about the Next Gen Racing community, what we stand for, what we do, and the series that we run, why not check us out, our official website, that is nextgenracing.co.uk. Alternatively, if you are on Facebook, you can check us out, our official Facebook group. That is facebook.com/groups/nextgenracing. Also, a huge thank you to our partners at Apex Racing Academy. That's apexracingac.com, our senior partner and sponsor for Lobby 1 of this series, of course contributing to that sizable prize pool. And now we look ahead to next time, for Lobby 1 will be taken to the Canadian Tire Motorsport Park Circuit for round number 3 on Wednesday the 20th of April 2022. It is the case, we are 2 rounds in, we're heading to our 3rd round, and the racing is only going to intensify at the circuit which many drivers are calling a similar circuit to Road Atlanta in terms of the overall pace, and we'll have to wait and see how it all goes down over the course of the 2 races. Of course, if you're not quite done with your racing fix this week, we will be bringing you the post-race broadcast of Lobby 2, or what is the IMB Racewear Lobby, as of tomorrow. We're bringing it to you tomorrow rather than the normal Friday due to a scheduling conflict. So that will be Thursday, the 14th of April 2022, where you'll be able to tune in and watch round 2 for what is the IMB Racewear Lobby. That's tomorrow night. But until then, that is all we have for you for tonight. Thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. We have been Next Gen Racing. I have been your host, commentator and broadcaster, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain of Spit. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.